Chapter 414. What was his rank? Jiang Xianbang had been wandering outside for more than a year. First, he stayed in Hong Kong and waited for news. After all, Hong Kong was everyone's safe haven. It was also a gathering place for all kinds of information. It was also full of brokers from all walks of life. Otherwise, how could the Four Seasons Hotel's room price be so high? After all, Wangbei Tower was home to many local bigwigs who did not dare to go back. These people had plenty of money, but they were no longer as omnipotent as they were in China. At this time, they only had money. Many people now knew that they couldn't do whatever they wanted with money. The only thing they lacked was a plane ticket to return home safely. They had money, and these people had connections. Naturally, they colluded with each other. However, many people were involved in too many things. Not everyone could do it. So many people were cheated. Especially many people knew that they would be cheated, but they still spent a lot of money. Because they had to try to know what was the use of keeping so much money. Jiang Xianbang was the same. He spent a lot of money in Hong Kong. In the end, not only did he not settle the matter, but Hong Kong was also not safe. He could only run to Singapore and Australia. Jiang Xianbang didn't seem to have any hope of returning to China. It was still a long way off. He finally understood why Yu Guangzhong wrote that poem, Nostalgia. Now he was the true portrayal of it. However, Jiang Xianbang did not expect that there would be a change today. This change came from a young man he did not expect, Qin Sheng. Jiang Xianbang did not know what Qin Sheng had experienced during this period, but since he could bring it up, Jiang Xianbang believed him. Based on his understanding of Qin Sheng and the fact that Qin Sheng had more or less known about this matter, if there was no possibility, Qin Sheng would not bring it up. Therefore, no matter whether it would work or not, Jiang Xianbang had to give it a try. At least there was hope. Okay, then I will wait for your news. Jiang Xianbang heard this answer and nodded silently. He did not ask for long. He could wait for 3 to 5 years. Qin Sheng replied quietly, Uncle Jiang, then take care of yourself outside. Well, anyway, thanks. Jiang Xianbang, who was sitting on the beach, took a sip of his cocktail and smiled bitterly. In the past, he was so glorious. Now, although he was not so down and out, he seemed to have nothing but money. He was an uneducated man who did not even know English. Living abroad was torture. It was too King lonely. Qin Sheng found it funny as he said, Uncle Jiang, we are too polite. Jiang Xianbang laughed and said, Qin Sheng, since you have returned to Shanghai, help me take care of Qing in the future. I can't do anything about it. Glancing at Qing Sheng sighed and said, I'd better not. I'm afraid of her. Qing frowned slightly and stared at Qin Sheng. She did not know what her uncle had said on the phone. Jiang Xianbang laughed out loud. He knew that these two people were quarrelsome, but this was also good. Feelings just came out when they quarreled. So he said disapprovingly, Okay, anyway, I'll leave it to you. If anything happens to her, I'll hold you responsible. Well, you guys talk. I'll hang up first. Contact me later. Qin Sheng casually said a few words and then hung up. After Qin Sheng hung up the phone, Qing immediately walked to Qin Sheng and asked, What did Uncle say to you? What do you want to know? Qin Sheng asked back. This woman really needed to be trained well. Let's see how she would be arrogant in the future. Qing stared at Qin Sheng and said, What do you want to say? Originally, Qin Sheng wanted to reply, Why should I tell you? However, he felt that it was almost time and he had to rush back. After all, he had heard from his sister that his uncle-in-law and his cousin-in-law would come over at night. He could not go back when they arrived, right? Nothing much. He just asked me to take good care of you. He is abroad and worried about you, Qin Sheng said honestly. Qing pouted and said angrily, Do I need you to take care of me? That's great. I can't ask for more. After all, it saved me a lot of trouble. Qin Sheng shrugged and stood up. Since I'm done with my business, I won't bother you anymore. See you next time. After saying that, he stood up and walked out. Qing did not intend to keep Qin Sheng. After all, this man made her very uncomfortable. Out of sight, out of mind. However, when Qin Sheng was about to walk out, she suddenly remembered that she did not have Qin Sheng's contact information. How could she find Qin Sheng in the future? At least she had to ask her uncle about the progress of the matter. So she hurriedly shouted, "Hey, wait." Qin Sheng heard her shout and stopped subconsciously. Then he turned around and asked, "Anything else? Are you reluctant to leave me?" Qing walked over quickly and did not care about Qin Sheng's flirting at all. She directly handed the phone to Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng said, "Leave your phone number. Otherwise, how can I find you? I thought you didn't want to see me anymore." Qin Sheng took the phone and dialed his own number. After confirming that it was connected, he hung up. After finishing the last thing, Qin Sheng handed the phone back to Qing Er. Then he waved his hand and directly left. He stopped a car at the gate and went to the old villa on Sinan Road. Qing Er did not see Qin Sheng out. She just stared at the yard in a daze. She thought about all the bits and pieces she had with this man. It seemed that he did not do anything wrong except for his occasional flirting. Otherwise, her uncle would not have appreciated him so much. Qing Er could not help but sigh. "I really don't understand him. Forget it. I'd better treat him better in the future. After all, I have something to ask of him." At this time, Uncle Wang, the housekeeper, came down. He heard the sound of the door opening and came out. Seeing Qing Er in a daze, he wondered, "Girl, has Qin Sheng left?" Qing Er came back to herself and nodded slightly. Uncle Wang muttered, "I thought he was going to stay for dinner. He just left like this. What a kid." However, Qing Er, I'm long-winded. In fact, I think Qin Sheng is quite good. You can think about it. Hearing Uncle Wang's words, Qing Er directly blushed and said, "Uncle Wang, what are you talking about?" After saying that, Qing Er fled and ran upstairs to her room. When Qin Sheng returned to the old foreign-style house on Sinan Road, his grandmother had not woken up yet. His cousin's family had come back. His small aunt and others had not arrived yet. The others were chatting in the living room. Seeing Qin Sheng coming back, Qin Ran smiled and asked, "You're back. Did you see your friend?" Qin Sheng walked over, sat down, and replied, "Yes. I thought she was not at home, so I went there to try my luck. I didn't expect that she was at home." Zhu Jiao walked to Qin Sheng on purpose, lowered his head slightly, took a deep breath, and said softly, "There is a light fragrance of a woman. It is not the smell of perfume, but a unique body fragrance, mixed with the smell of tea and agarwood. Cousin, your friend is definitely a beauty, and she is a quiet person." Qin Sheng did not take it seriously at first, and the others were also wondering what Zhu Jiao was doing. After Zhu Jiao finished his words, Qin Sheng was confused. If his brothers and sisters were not present, he would have shouted, "What the F***?" Qin Ran, Zhu Qingyuan, and his wife also looked incredulous, but they were somewhat skeptical. "Cousin, I guessed it right? Tell me honestly, who is this beauty? No wonder you don't want me to go with you. You are afraid that I will steal her. Although I like beautiful women, a gentleman loves beautiful women, and I will never steal her," Zhu Jiao said proudly. He was known as the little prince of the nightclub in the Bund. It was just that his family was stricter these days. Zhu Yi knew that his cynical brother had such a skill. In his words, he could accurately smell what kind of perfume a woman was using, and almost never made a mistake unless it was a perfume that had just come on the market and he did not know about it. Every time, he could guess what kind of perfume a woman was using, and he used this trick to chase after many girls. Zhu Yi also stared at Qin Sheng and joked, "Qin Sheng, tell us quickly." Qin Sheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He thought that Zhu Jiao and Xia Ding could play together. He laughed and said, "Jiao, I really admire you. Who did you learn this from? My friend is indeed beautiful and quiet. She's a teacher at the Shanghai Conservatory of Music. She likes drinking tea and playing the piano. She is proficient in several kinds of Eastern and Western musical instruments. She doesn't have a boyfriend yet. I don't have a chance. I will introduce you to her another day. Maybe you two will be together." Cousin, forget it. I already have a girlfriend. If she finds out, I'll be dead." Zhu Jiao laughed out loud, but he also heard that Qin Sheng also had a girlfriend, so he just passed it off as a joke. Qin Sheng smiled. When it was almost time, Qin Ran went upstairs to see whether her grandmother had woken up or not. The old lady had a regular schedule, and her nap was basically 1.5 hours. As expected, when she went upstairs, the old lady had already woken up. After the old lady finished washing, when Qin ran helped her down, the living room became lively again. The whole old foreign-style house was filled with all kinds of laughter. The old lady was still sitting by Qin Sheng's side. She held Qin Sheng's hand and said, "Sheng, I thought it was just a dream. Fortunately, it was not a dream. I was so scared." The old lady's words made Qin Sheng quite sad. He held the old lady's hand tightly and said, "Grandma, you will get used to it gradually. I will always be with you and never leave." "Good boy. I'm afraid that I can't hold on for long. I don't know how many days I can stay with you. It's all God's fault." The old lady shed tears again as she said. Everyone hurried to comfort the old lady. They really dared not to make her sad anymore. This kind of mood fluctuation was too much, and they were really afraid that something bad would happen to the old lady. After a while, Zhu Yi's husband and child came over. Zhu Yi introduced Qin Sheng to her husband with a smile. Her husband had only heard of this cousin. He was quite surprised when Zhu Yi called him and told him about it today. Qin Sheng smiled and chatted with his cousin-in-law, who worked in the Pudong New area. Then he gave a red packet to the child and waited for the arrival of his uncle-in-law, who was in a high position. When the kitchen informed them that dinner was ready and asked when they would finish eating, they finally heard the sound of a car outside. Zhu Qingwen and her husband came late. Chapter 4:15. It's a little fierce. It's the end of the month. Do you have a monthly ticket? If the relationship between the Qin family and the Zhu family hadn't been so tense, the Zhu family and the Qin family would have been more powerful than many rich families. However, everything had its pros and cons. It was precisely because of the close relationship between the Qin family and the Zhu family that Qin Chang'an had less scruples. Similarly, the Zhu family did not need to be scrupulous about anything. At least, when the big shots of the Zhu family continued to advance, they would not be the weak point that held them back. The Zhu family could be divided into two Zhu families. One was the Zhu family where the old lady lived, and the other was the Zhu family where Zhu Qingwen's husband lived. This was also the reason why Zhu Qingwen's children were all surnamed Zhu. It didn't mean that her husband married into the Zhu family. Qin Chang'an was in the business world, while Zhu Weiguo was in the military. Zhu Qingwen's husband was the real successor of old Master Zhu. He was the representative of the Zhu family in the political circle. Although he had been through a lot in recent years and had been suppressed several times, fortunately, he had accumulated a lot of experience and had a bright future. The relationship between the Zhu family and the Qin family had been awkward before. However, after Qin Sheng came back, the relationship seemed to be integrated again. Qin Sheng didn't know what effect it would have on others, but at least for Qin Sheng, a small fry who had just returned to the big family, it was definitely beneficial. Because if Qin Sheng wanted to take revenge, he would definitely use his identity and resources. The more powerful the background of the Zhu family and the Qin family, the easier it would be. However, Qin Sheng was not clear about many things. As time went by, the mystery was gradually revealed. Today, he was going to reveal the identity of his uncle-in-law. He only knew that his uncle-in-law was working in Shanghai, but he didn't know which position he was in. However, after his sister's words, Qin Sheng could finally make a bold guess. Except for the old lady who was holding Now Now in her arms, the others all went out to welcome the middle-aged man who had just made a breakthrough before the Spring Festival. In the whole Zhu family and the Qin family, only Zhu Weiguo and Qin Chang'an could be on equal footing with him. The middle-aged man could only spare a short hour to attend the family gathering. During the Spring Festival, he was busier than usual. However, family and kinship were indispensable to anyone. Today, these children had come all the way from Beijing, so he naturally had to show up. It was an ordinary Audi A6L without a special license plate. The driver and secretary sat in the front, while Zhu Qingwen and the middle-aged man sat behind. The two of them got out of the car unhurriedly, while the secretary and the driver continued to wait in the car. Both Zhu Jiao and Zhu Yi were proud of their father. Although they didn't spend much time with him, they were used to it and could understand him. Especially every time they saw their father working until late at night. They were more distressed than anyone else. Unfortunately, they couldn't share their father's worries. The only thing they could do was not to let their father worry. Zhu Qingyuan, who was also pursuing an official career, could understand his uncle better. First of all, he also had a lot of helplessness. Second, his father, Zhu Weigua, was almost the same as his uncle, or maybe even busier than his uncle. He had very little time to spend with his family every year, not to mention being busier during the spring festival. After the middle-aged man got out of the car with a smile, the others quickly walked up and greeted him with a smile. Qin Sheng just stood aside, quietly looking this middle-aged man with extraordinary temperament. Recently, he had been in contact with many big shots in high positions. From their words, deeds, temperament, eyes, and other details, he could roughly judge their positions. After Zhu Qingyuan and his wife finished greeting each other, Qin Ran said with a smile, "Little uncle, I thought I wouldn't be able to see you again on this trip to Shanghai." When she was young, she would stay with her grandparents for a while before going to her little aunt's place. Therefore, she was very familiar with little uncle, who had watched her grow up. At this time, the middle-aged man might be very imposing in front of outsiders, but in front of his family, he looked very approachable. He looked at Qin Ran and said with a smile, "You came all the way from Beijing to visit me for the Spring Festival. As your uncle, if I still don't show up, I'll be a little incompetent." At this time, Zhu Qingwen patted her husband's arm lightly and looked at Qin Sheng with a meaningful look. She had already told her husband about this when she met him. At first, her husband didn't believe it at all. After all, it was a child who had been separated from him for more than 20 years. Now suddenly telling him that he had found him. How could he believe it? In the end, with all kinds of explanations from his wife, he finally half believed it. Until now, when he saw Qin Sheng in person, he completely believed it. The middle-aged man was called Zhu Changshan. Everyone could tell from his clothes that he was a government leader. He wore a shirt inside and a gray jacket outside. Under the gaze of everyone, he slowly walked toward Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng was a little nervous because this uncle's eyes were too sharp. He called out anxiously, "Youngest uncle." At this time, Zhu Changshuan's eyes began to soften. He nodded slightly and said, "Your youngest aunt told me that you're back." At first, I really didn't dare to believe it. After all, more than 20 years have passed. I'm afraid that except for us, a lot of people have forgotten that there's a child like you. To put it bluntly, I'm afraid that many of us have lost hope. Zhu Changshuan's words were not polite words. He really felt that way. Back then, that big sister had taken care of him and his wife a lot. He remembered that when he was studying in Beijing, he had some health problems that needed to be taken care of. But he had no time to treat them, and his wife was in Shanghai. That big sister forced him to see a doctor. Later, she boiled medicine for him every day and took the bus to the party school. For a month, he was very touched, not to mention the little things that happened in his life. This was also the main reason why he loved Qin Ran so much. Therefore, when that big sister died unexpectedly, Zhu Changshan was not more sad than his wife. It took a long time for him to recover, but he still had to comfort and take care of his wife. He asked God why such a kind woman was taken away, but there was no answer until now. Qin Sheng didn't know what to say, but he had to say something. After thinking for a while, he said, "Uncle, it's my fault. I made you worry for so many years." "Qin Sheng, don't say that. In fact, you're the most innocent in many things. If you want to say sorry, it's us elders who have wronged you. More than 20 years have passed, and we finally found you. You've been wronged." Zhu Changshan patted Qin Sheng's shoulder and said with a sigh. Qin Sheng laughed at himself and said, "Actually, I didn't expect that I had other relatives. I thought I was just an orphan. Don't say these sad words. Anyway, it's good that you're back. We elders owe you, and we'll make it up to you slowly. Although you're already a big boy when you left, some things haven't changed. Your eyes are like your mother's, and your nose is like your father's." Zhu Changshan laughed as he spoke. It was not good to be so sad during the spring festival. After all, when the old lady and his wife met each other at noon, they must have cried. At this time, Zhu Qingwen also felt that it was about time. He laughed and said, "It's so cold outside. Let's go inside and talk. I'm afraid that the old lady can't wait any longer. She'll nag again later. Everyone looked at each other and smiled. Then they walked into the house. After walking into the living room, Now called Qin Sheng grandpa under her mother's signal. Zhu Changshun smiled and held Now up. He liked children very much. Usually, as long as he was at home, he would play with them. After Zhu Changshun greeted the old lady with a smile, he chuckled and said, "Mom, I'm afraid I haven't seen you so happy for many years. You've been waiting for the stars and the moon. Finally, your favorite grandson is back." The old lady's face was full of smiles. She replied, "Do you mean that I'm the only one who is happy when my grandson is back? You're not happy." Hearing this, Zhu Changshun did not know whether to laugh or cry. He turned to the others and said, "You're finished. Now that Qin Sheng is back, you're all out of favor. Be filial to him in the future." Everyone burst into laughter again. Even the old lady could not help but laugh. Dinner had been prepared. When Zhu Changshun and Zhu Qingwen arrived, they could start the dinner. After all, he had to leave in a while. Fortunately, the round table in the dining room was relatively large. They all sat down after squeezing together. If they were divided into two tables, it would not be so lively. The old lady still pulled Qin Sheng to sit next to her. She was really reluctant to leave her grandson. She was really afraid that he would be wronged. When eating, she kept putting food into his bowl. With the help of Zhu Qingwen and Qin Ran, Qin Sheng did not need to move his chopsticks at all. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. The others were even more envious. It was estimated that Qin Sheng was the only one in the whole Zhu family who could enjoy such treatment. It was rare to see such a lively scene. Of course, they had a drink. Because Zhu Changshun had something to do, he had to drink tea instead of wine. However, since his youngest son, Zhu Jiao, was present, he naturally accompanied the hospitable guests on his behalf. At the dinner table, Zhu Changshun naturally wanted to ask Qin Sheng something. However, Qin Sheng had said it so many times that he did not want to say it anymore. Fortunately, the others helped him to answer the questions. Finally, he got away with it. After dinner, Zhu Changshun left first. The others walked him out first. After that, they came back to the living room and chatted with the old lady. The old lady was very happy. When it was almost time, Zhu Qingwen began to arrange their accommodation. Of course, the old lady wanted Qin Sheng and Qin Ran to stay in the old foreign-style house. So Zhu Qingwen took the others back. Zhu Qingyuan and his wife lived in Qin Ran's apartment in Shanghai. After all, they did not lack accommodation. It was already 11 o'clock. The old lady should go to bed. Qin Ran and Qin Sheng chatted with the old lady for a while. Then they helped the old lady upstairs to rest. Their rooms were all on the second floor, which had been tidied up. At this time, the housemaid came over with a basin of hot water to wash the old lady's feet. This was the old lady's habit every day. Qin Sheng took the initiative and said, "Let me do it." The housemaid was a little surprised. She looked at the old lady and felt embarrassed. The old lady also said, "Shenger, let them do this. You go to bed early." However, Qin Sheng insisted. "Grandma, I haven't been with you for these years. It's my duty to wash your feet. Besides, you bathed me many times when I was a child." Qin Sheng's insistence and words almost moved the old lady to tears. So she signaled the housemaid to let Qin Sheng do it. Qin Sheng squatted on the ground to measure the water temperature, add cold water, and so on. His movements were more skillful. At the same time, he chatted with the old lady, which warmed the old lady's heart. In fact, Qin Sheng was also very excited. This was because he had taken care of his grandfather in this way when he was a child. However, he had no chance to do it again. This also made him think of his grandfather. "Grandpa, how are you?" Qin Ran, who came upstairs, saw this scene. Her eyes were inexplicably wet. Then she went out with a smile. She did not want to disturb such a warm moment. When the old lady lay down, Qin Sheng went back to the living room. Qin Ran was watching TV. Seeing Qin Sheng come down, she asked, "How is it? Have you guessed the level of your uncle?" Qin Sheng said thoughtfully, "A municipal leader? Be more specific." Qin Ran looked playful. Qin Sheng smiled bitterly and said, "How can I know? Unless I guess all of them." Qin Ran signaled Qin Sheng to turn around. She pointed at the TV that was playing the news and said, "You don't need to guess. Isn't this the uncle?" Qin Sheng looked puzzled. He did not know what his sister meant. However, when he turned around and saw the news on the TV, he was instantly stunned and did not speak. Chapter 416. Shanghai, Shanghai, Shanghai. Since the beginning of modern history, this city had become the most dazzling existence. It used to be surely Yanchang, but now it was the Oriental Pearl. Therefore, as the domestic economic center, every move of Shanghai attracted attention, not to mention the change of the big boss in charge of this city. Who didn't know what it meant? Qin Sheng stared at the middle-aged man in the TV news for a long time and did not come to his senses. He was totally different from the amiable uncle who cared about him just now. He frowned. When did the position of the municipal government change? He seemed to have never noticed it. This was big news. However, Qin Sheng thought about it and realized that he had no time to watch the news during this period. After the mourning for his mother, he went to Xin without stopping and returned to Beijing for the new year the next day. He did not have any free time these days. Are you surprised? Qin Ran turned off the TV and joked. She had long been used to this. Anyway, since she was a child, she had seen all kinds of big shots that ordinary people could only see on TV. After all, she was born in such a family and such an environment, but Qin Sheng was different. After Qin Sheng came to his senses, he smiled bitterly and said, "I am a little surprised. It is a level higher than I thought. But not everyone can cross this threshold, let alone in a city like Shanghai. After all, the higher you go, the more difficult it is. There are only so many positions." Qin Ran said with a smile, "What do you think?" "All right, don't think so much. In the future, you will meet more uncles like this and get used to it. Moreover, you have met my uncle." Qin Sheng smiled bitterly. At least he had not gotten used to it yet. After all, he was just an ordinary poor loser before. He suddenly met so many big shots. More or less, he needed time to adjust. It was already late. The sister and brother went upstairs to rest and said good night to each other at the door. Qin Sheng lay on the bed and thought a lot. When he was in Shanghai before, although he had ideals and ambitions, he did not have so much confidence. After all, there were tens of millions of people in this city, and there were too many powerful local tycoons. For example, he offended the Yin family carelessly and then left Shanghai in a mess. But today, for the first time, he was so confident. He finally knew why those rich playboys dared to be unscrupulous and domineering. At this moment, his phone rang. He took out his phone and found that it was a message from Lin Su. It was a few simple words. "Are you asleep?" In an instant, Qin Sheng stopped thinking about anything and revealed a sincere smile on his face. No matter how complicated life was, once he had the spice of love, it was like he was injected with energy, qi, and spirit. Qin Sheng did not reply to the text. Instead, he dialed the number directly. However, he was a little worried about whether it was convenient for Lin Su to answer the phone. Fortunately, the call went through within a few seconds. Compared to the anxiety he had felt at noon, Qin Sheng was calmer this time. He asked in a low voice, "Wife, is it convenient for me to talk to you?" Lin Su, who was hiding under the quilt, felt warm in her heart when she heard this sweet nickname. She only dared to wait until now to text Qin Sheng. Because there were a lot of people coming and going during the day, her father found several groups of people to persuade her, but they were all rejected by her with various reasons. This house was guarded 24 hours a day. Of course, she did not dare to take the risk. At this time, the people downstairs were probably already asleep. "I'll just keep my voice down," Lin Su said with a faint smile. It was as if she had returned to the time when she had just met Qin Sheng, or when they had just confirmed their relationship. Qin Sheng joked, "Then I'll also keep my voice down. I didn't have time to ask you during the day. Why did you come to Shanghai?" Lin Su asked with concern. Although she was not afraid of Qin Sheng's impulsiveness, she was completely relieved to hear it from Qin Sheng's mouth. Qin Sheng was so smart, of course, he knew what Lin Su meant. After all, there was Yin Chaozong, his mortal enemy, in Shanghai. So he replied, "Don't worry, I'm not back for revenge. It's just that my grandmother has been living in Shanghai, and so is my small aunt. I haven't seen them since I came back, so my sister brought me here to visit them during the new year. You have your grandmother, small aunt, and your sister. With so many relatives taking care of you, I'm relieved, Lin Su said with a long sigh. When she did not receive Qin Sheng's call at noon, she was more or less worried about whether Qin Sheng could take care of himself outside. Qin Sheng continued, "They loved me very much when I was young. Now that I'm finally back, of course they love me even more, which makes me a little embarrassed. Especially my sister. She almost spoils me to the heavens. It's the first time in so many years that I've been treated like this. Let me tell you a secret. My sister is as beautiful as you. They all want to see you." "That's good," Lin Su said with relief. She was also very happy that Qin Sheng told them about her. But then she let out a long sigh and said, "Alas, why do you suddenly sigh?" Qin Sheng said with distress. Lin Su said slowly, "Say hello to them for me. I don't know when I can see them. Lin, you told me that Grandma was angry again today, but they still didn't give in." Upon hearing this, Qin Sheng's face fell. He said firmly, "I told you that I would go to the Lin family to pick you up in person. You just wait for me quietly. Don't let Grandma worry about you anymore. Now I have the ability and the way to solve this problem. The Lin family can't stop me." "That's right." This was the second time that Qin Sheng said this, and he was more confident. Lin Su nodded heavily and said, "I believe you." They did not talk for too long, for fear of being discovered. Moreover, there were many things that Qin Sheng wanted to explain after they met. So they hung up in less than 20 minutes. In the morning, when Qin Sheng got up, the old lady was already eating breakfast downstairs. Seeing her grandson coming down, the old lady said with distress, "Shenger, why didn't you sleep longer? Why did you wake up so early?" Qin Sheng sat beside the old lady obediently and said with a smile, "Grandma, I never sleep late. These years, I basically get up at this time." The old lady looked kind and said with a smile, "What a good boy. You are much more diligent than them. Jiao, the bad boy, every time he comes here, he doesn't get up until 12 o'clock. When your sister came to Shanghai before, she also got up after 10 o'clock. None of them are as diligent as you." "Grandma, I'm used to it." Qin Sheng smiled awkwardly. After breakfast, the old lady went to Fuxing Park for a morning exercise as usual. Most of the time, it was the medical staff who accompanied her. Unless Zhu Qingwen or other people came over, they would not accompany the old lady. Naturally, it was Qin Sheng's turn today. Qin Sheng supported his grandmother and walked in the front at a moderate pace. The medical staff followed behind. If anything happened to the old lady, they could quickly come to ensure that there would be no danger. Qin Sheng had not felt this way for a long time. He did not understand why those young people always disliked the old people's nagging. He liked to walk with the old people. Not to mention that the old people did not have many days to live. How many days could they accompany them? Just listening to them talk about the soul-stirring stories of the past was very interesting. Decades of time had finally settled into a few sentences. No matter how many ups and downs they had gone through, they had all vanished in a thin air. Those life experiences were all in these words. They really did not know how lucky they were. His grandmother was not in good health, so Qin Sheng was not in a hurry to walk. He listened to his grandmother talking about the story of living here when she was a child, the story of him and his grandfather, followed by the story of his mother when she was a child, and so on. Qin Sheng listened with great interest and could not wait to hear his grandmother talk like this. After arriving at Fuxing Park, the old lady found a place to sit down casually. She took Qin Sheng's hand and said, "Shenger, I am a little too long-winded. Ran and the others don't like to hear me talk about these things." Qin Sheng quickly replied, "Grandma, I like to hear you talk about these things. After all, I know too little. During this period, I will accompany you in Shanghai. Please tell me more. It's better to tell me more for a few days and nights. I'm afraid that you will be tired." "Oh, Shenger, you are really good at talking. As long as you like it, I will not be tired. So what else do you want to know?" The old lady said very happily. Qin Sheng thought for a moment and said, "Grandma, please tell me more about my mother." Qin Sheng did not dare to say the following words, afraid that the old lady would be sad again, because he wanted to say, "I miss her," The old lady sighed. A child without a mother was the most pitiful, not to mention a child like Shang-Er. She did not want to make Qin Sheng sad, so she smiled and said, "Okay, I will tell you more." The old man and the young boy sat on the bench in the park and talked about the past. Time passed by slowly. However, neither the old lady nor Qin Sheng paid attention to it at all until the medical staff reminded them that it was time to go home. Then they went back. When they returned to the old foreign-style house, Qin Ran had already gotten up. After saying goodbye to her grandma, she took Qin Sheng out. The bodyguards of the Qin family had come to pick them up. They were going to visit the two uncles today. In fact, Qin Sheng preferred to stay in the old foreign-style house to chat with his grandma and listen to her stories. However, he thought that he might need a lot of resources in Shanghai in the future, so he finally went out with his sister. In the morning, they visited a famous tycoon in the Bund, who was very influential in the business world. Qin Sheng had heard a lot about him. However, it was said that he had an accident and disappeared for a period of time. It seemed that the news had died down recently, so Qin Sheng did not know whether it was true or not. Qin Ran and Qin Sheng had lunch outside. Although the tycoon and his wife wanted them to stay, Qin Ran was afraid that Qin Sheng would not be used to it since there were other people there. In the afternoon, they visited another house. His identity was similar to that of the tycoon in the morning. However, compared with that tycoon, he was more low-key, so there were few rumors about him. Qin Ran and Qin Sheng left after staying for a while. At this time, Zhu Wenqing called and asked with a smile, "Sheng-Er, have you finished your work? I made an appointment with her. She is on her way." Qin Sheng had mentioned it casually yesterday. He did not expect that his small aunt would arrange it so quickly. He found it funny and said, "Small aunt, where are you? We are coming." Zhu Qingwen told Qin Sheng the address and hung up. It seemed that this meeting would be very interesting. Qin Ran found it funny and said, "What else do you want to do with small aunt? Why are you so mysterious?" Chapter 417. I'm begging for monthly votes. If Qin Sheng had not told her, Zhu Qingwen would not have known that her nephew and Xue Qingwen were so close. She did not expect that Xue Qingyin had helped Qin Sheng so much, which made Zhu Qingwen feel grateful to Xue Qingyin. Therefore, after learning about this yesterday, Zhu Qingwen asked a few more questions. Then, Qin Sheng said that if he had time after the Spring Festival, he would ask her, as his aunt, to invite Xue Qingyin out. He had not seen Xue Qingyin for a long time. At that time, they could have a good chat. It would be a surprise for Xue Qingyin. In fact, the relationship between Zhu Qingwen and Xue Qingyin was not as close as imagined. It was just that Xue Qingyin's brother and Zhu Qingwen's husband were both cadres in Shanghai from Zhejiang. They used to be colleagues, and they were considered to be from the same department. They got along well, so they had more interactions. Xue Qingyin and Zhu Qingwen had met several times when they were in Hangzhou, and then they became closer. After they arrived in Shanghai, their relationship became even closer. Occasionally, they would attend some occasions together, go shopping, drink coffee, and so on. However, their relationship was really not that of a sister or best friend who could say everything to each other. After all, they had their own taboos. However, after knowing what Qin Sheng had done, Zhu Qingwen had a different understanding of Xue Qingyin. So she called Xue Qingyin directly after she went home last night. She asked if she would be in Hangzhou or Shanghai during the Spring Festival and if they could make an appointment. She did not expect Xue Qingyin to be in Shanghai. She had nothing to do and wanted to avoid some people that she did not want to see. Therefore, she made the appointment this evening. Zhu Qingwen had been entertaining guests at home from morning to afternoon. The ways of the world called for reciprocity. Even if Zhu Zhangshun had reached this position, he would still have a lot of helplessness. Moreover, he was one step closer to the new year, so there were more people who wanted to visit him. Some of them could be turned down, but some could not be avoided. Therefore, he could only treat them this way. After finishing these things, Zhu Qingwen called Qin Sheng and Xue Qingyin after Zhu Zhangshun went out and confirmed the place for dinner. Dinner was at a restaurant on Dongdaming Road. The restaurant served Shanghai local cuisine. Usually, they only entertained high-ranking officials and noble people. All the private rooms were different sizes. Basically, they were regular customers. The reason why Zhu Qingwen chose this place was because the environment was better and, at the same time, it was quieter. Of course, privacy was not a consideration. Zhu Qingwen was the first to arrive. The owner of the restaurant personally received her, chatting and laughing with her. After all, Zhu Qingwen's husband now stood at the top of the pyramid in this city. He was the person that everyone wanted to curry favor with. It was a great opportunity for the owner's wife to come here to eat. The owner of the restaurant was a middle-aged woman. She was dressed in jewels, and her temperament was naturally graceful and luxurious. Although his business was neither too big nor too small, he did have a lot of connections, and his conduct was admirable, so he could be considered a person. When they arrived, the woman left sensibly. However, before she left, Zhu Qingwen reminded her to inform him in advance if Xue Qingyan came. After Qin Ran sat down, she laughed and said, "Annie, what are you and Qin Sheng doing? Why are you acting so mysterious? Didn't Qin Sheng tell you? I thought you already knew." Zhu Qingwen laughed. On one hand, Qin Sheng wanted to meet this sister who had helped him countless times. After all, Qin Sheng was completely different from before. On the other hand, Zhu Qingwen also wanted to thank Xue Qingyan for taking care of Qin Sheng. Qin Ran really could not hold back her temper. She looked at Qin Sheng and asked, "Tell me, what on earth is it? You even hid it from me." Qin Sheng laughed and said, "Actually, it's nothing. It's just that I helped my sister and auntie get to know each other. I originally wanted to ask Annie to help me make an appointment with her after the spring festival, and I would meet her then. I didn't expect that she happened to be in Shanghai, so Annie made the appointment today." "Oh, I see. Then I'm really looking forward to what kind of woman can make you call her sister so sincerely." Qin Ran was still a little jealous. After all, she thought that only Qin Sheng could call her sister and no one else could. Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. He said, "Sister, you are jealous again. Sister Qing Yin really helped me a lot. When I was forced to leave Shanghai, she even helped me secretly." "Oh, no wonder," Qin Ran said thoughtfully. "Auntie, then how do you know her?" Zhu Qingwen explained with a smile. "Did you forget that Sheng has said that the first time I met him was because of Qin Yin? It's a pity that I didn't know Sheng Er's identity at that time. Otherwise, I would have known him earlier. In fact, Qin Yin is a good person. Her father is an old leader in Zhejiang. Although he is retired for many years, he is still very influential. And her brother and your uncle have a good relationship. They used to be colleagues in Zhejiang, and now they are colleagues in Shanghai." Qin Ran thought for a moment and replied, "Surnamed Xue? Oh, I know who she is. Then this woman is not simple. I didn't expect that she also took care of Qin Sheng. You will know when you see her." Zhu Qingwen laughed and said. They chatted for a while. Zhu Qingwen casually asked about the situation of Qin Ran and Qin Sheng today. About 10 minutes later, the middle-aged woman came in and told Zhu Qingwen that Xue Qingyan had arrived. "Sheng you can hide now." Zhu Qingwen looked at Qin Sheng and smiled. Qin Sheng said that he wanted to give Xue Qingyan a surprise, so Zhu Qingwen followed him. Qin Sheng glanced at his sister, who was puzzled. He quietly stood up and walked out of the room. When Xue Qingyan arrived, he would wait at the door of the room, waiting to give Ms. Chong Sam a surprise. After Qin Sheng went out, the door of the room was opened again. The woman walked in with Xue Qingyan and said with a smile, "Miss Xue, this is the place." The woman did not take the liberty to come in. After taking Xue Qingyan to the private room, she closed the door and left. Xue Qingyan smiled and thanked her. Then she turned around and walked into the private room unhurriedly. She greeted Zhu Qingwen and said, "Sister, sorry to keep you waiting for a long time. Before I left, a guest came to our house, so I was delayed." Xue Qingyan was still so delicate. She had slightly curly long hair and light makeup. She wore a gray suit with a coat on the outside and carried a custom-made bag without a nameplate in her hand. Her temperament was not inferior to Qin Ran at all. This was the first time that Qin Ran met Xue Qingyan. She looked at Xue Qingyan quietly and nodded silently. Obviously, she had a high opinion of Xue Qingyan just from the first meeting. However, Qin Ran was still curious about why such a woman would have a relationship with Qin Sheng, and she had helped Qin Sheng a lot. Could it be that she liked her silly brother? At this time, Zhu Qingwen and Qin Ran both stood up. Although they were not ordinary people, they were naturally more polite to Qin Ran because of their relationship with Qin Sheng. It's okay. We just arrived. Is the old man in Shanghai for the new year this year? Zhu Qingwen said politely. Shui Qingyan sighed and said, don't mention it. I put a lot of effort into this matter. Of course, my brother has no time. It took me a lot of effort to persuade the old man to come. Zhu Qingwen smiled and echoed, people are all like this when they get old. At this time, Shui Qingyan had already sat down. She put her bag and coat on the chair beside her. She looked at Qin Ran and smiled. Sister, this is? Zhu Qingwen deliberately came to her senses and said, oh, I almost forgot to introduce her to you. This beauty is my niece, my sister's daughter. She admires you very much and has heard a lot about you. This time, I happen to be in Shanghai, so I brought her to meet you. You two are in the same industry. Both of you are in the investment business. Shui Qingyan was a little surprised. She did not expect that it would be Zhu Qingwen's niece. She took the initiative to greet and shake hands with Qin Ran. They chatted politely for a while. However, Qin Ran was a little unhappy when she heard what Small Ant said. What did she mean by I admire her very much? Small Ant, this is the first time that I've seen her. Moreover, in the business world or the investment world, there are few people who can be compared to our Qin family. However, since Shui Qingyan had helped Qin Sheng's silly brother, Qin Ran would let her take advantage of her. Therefore, there were more topics to talk about. Both Shui Qingyan and Qin Ran were in the investment business, so they chatted to their heart's content. Moreover, they were both women. After they got to know each other, they really did not need to care about women. When it was almost time, Zhu Qingwen could not let Qin Sheng wait outside. She smiled and said, oh, Qingyan, I went to Shangshan Ruoshui a few days ago. Why did I hear that you have withdrawn from Shangshan Ruoshui? Hearing this, Shui Qingyan let out a long sigh and said, ah, sister, I have withdrawn from there long ago. Shangshan Ruoshui is no longer the Shangshan Ruoshui before. What's wrong? I think it's quite good there. I have a deep impression of the child named Qin Sheng, but I have never seen him again. Zhu Qingwen took the initiative to lead the topic. Hearing the name Qin Sheng, Shui Qingyan was slightly lost. Her eyes were slightly sad. She took a sip of tea and said, Qin Sheng? He left Shangshan Ruoshui 2 years ago. He is indeed a good child. I have always admired him and treated him as a younger brother. Unfortunately, he is not very lucky. By the way, sister, why did you suddenly mention him? Since the topic had been brought up to this point, no matter what Shui Qingyan asked, Zhu Qingwen would have a strategy to deal with it. So she replied, I have a friend who knows him. We chatted for a while and asked about his recent situation. I happened to come to ask you today. Shui Qingyan smiled bitterly and shook her head. Sister, let's not talk about Qin Sheng. I feel sorry for him. He treats me as a sister, but I have no ability to help him. I don't know whether he is doing well or not. The atmosphere suddenly became a little sad, but Shui Qingyan's words made Zhu Qingwen and Qin Ran have a better impression of her, because they could hear that Shui Qingyan had a lot of feelings for Qin Sheng. At this time, Zhu Qingwen smiled playfully and said, in this case, I will not talk about it. But my friend happens to come today and wants to talk to you. Shui Qingyan was a little surprised. Who was this friend? At this time, Qin Sheng also heard the words of his aunt. He knew it was time for him to show up. He took a deep breath, pushed open the door of the box, and walked in slowly. Shui Qingyan subconsciously looked in the direction of the door. The moment she saw Qin Sheng walking in, Shui Qingyan was instantly stunned. The teacup in her hand fell with a bang and broke into pieces. Chapter 418. A Loser's Counterattack? Begging for monthly tickets. You all have tickets at the end of the month. It was not that Shui Qingyan did not have the ability to help Qin Sheng in Hangzhou. It was just that Qin Sheng got into trouble before Shui Qingyan could find a perfect plan. In the end, he left Hangzhou in a mess again. Shui Qingyan did not know what happened that night. She just suddenly received a message from Qin Sheng. Sister, I'm leaving. See you later. However, it seemed that everyone disappeared overnight. Qin Sheng disappeared. Lin Su disappeared. Even Chang Baji, Hao Lei, and the others disappeared. Shui Qingyan knew clearly that the night Qin Sheng left must have been thrilling. How could Yin Chaozong and the others let him leave so easily? It was just that no one knew. When she received another message from Qin Sheng, it was already the evening of the next day. It was still a few simple words. I'm safe. Don't worry about me. Since then, she had completely lost contact with Qin Sheng. She could not contact him no matter how hard she tried. It had been more than 2 months. She did not know whether Qin Sheng was alive or not. This also became a problem in her heart. Every time she thought of Qin Sheng, she would feel a little sad and sigh. However, Shui Qingyan did not expect to see Qin Sheng here today. This was the place where Zhu Qingwen had arranged to meet. With Zhu Qingwen's current status, it was impossible for him to have any interaction with Qin Sheng. Therefore, when Qin Sheng walked in, Shui Qingyan was completely stunned, as if she had seen a ghost. She was dumbfounded and her face was full of disbelief. Even though Shui Qingyan had seen too many big scenes, she could not come back to her senses at this moment. She could not believe that the man in front of her was Qin Sheng. However, after confirming again and again, the man in front of her was Qin Sheng. Or did he just look like Qin Sheng? There could not be such a coincidence in the world, right? Shui Qingyan's reaction was within everyone's expectation. Probably no one would have thought that they would see Qin Sheng here. Zhu Qingwen and Qin Ran looked at Shui Qingyan with a smile. They were more and more fond of this woman. After all, love me, love my dog. Qin Sheng smiled and walked slowly to Shui Qingyan. When Shui Qingyan was still in a daze, he said gently, Sister, long time no see. Sorry to make you worry. When Qin Sheng finished his words, the answer was self-evident. No matter how Shui Qingyan thought about it, the identity of the man in front of her had been confirmed. He was the silly brother who had disappeared for more than 2 months and made her worry a lot. Shui Qingyan's eyes were slightly red. She did not know whether it was because she had disappeared for more than 2 months. After she came back to her senses, she was completely confused and did not know what to say. She looked at Qin Sheng, whose temperament had obviously changed a lot, and then turned to look at Zhu Qingwen as if she wanted a reasonable explanation. This was too unexpected, and she couldn't understand it no matter how she thought about it. Zhu Qingwen stood up and walked to Shui Qingyan. She said with a smile, Qingyan, are you surprised? You didn't expect to see Qin Sheng here, did you? Shui Qingyan asked, Sister, what's going on? Zhu Qingwen held Qin Sheng's arm and said with a smile, Qingyan, let me formally introduce you to my nephew, Qin Sheng, who is also Qin Ran's younger brother and my sister's long-lost son. What? When she heard Zhu Qingwen's introduction, she was shocked again. She could not believe it at all. Qin Sheng was Zhu Qingwen's nephew? How could this be possible? When she brought Zhu Qingwen to Shangshan Ruoshui to see Qin Sheng, they did not know each other at that time. How did he become her nephew in the blink of an eye? This news was really too shocking. It should be known that Qin Sheng was just an ordinary man with ideals and ambitions, but bad luck in the past. When he was in Shanghai, he was chased by Yin Chaozong and almost lost his life. In Hangzhou, he was jointly suppressed by several parties and had no choice but to leave again. How did Qin Sheng become Zhu Qingwen's nephew after not seeing him for more than 2 months? One should know that Zhu Qingwen's husband was now a leading figure in the city of Shanghai. He was a figure that everyone was afraid of. How could Qin Sheng become their nephew? The difference in their identities was like heaven and earth. Shui Qingyan did not expect that what she thought was an ordinary meeting would be so many things happening one after another. One was more magical than the other. She was overwhelmed and could not come back to her senses at all. She could not breathe. Shui Qingyan's reaction was within everyone's expectation. If this was not the truth, they would not believe it. Life was full of ups and downs. God would occasionally play a joke or two. Qingyan, are you surprised? In fact, I was a little surprised when I saw Qin Sheng, not to mention you. But the truth is the truth. No matter how we don't believe it, we have to accept it. Zhu Qingwen patted Shui Qingyan's shoulder and smiled. Sit down. Let's talk slowly. You will know everything you want to know. After everyone sat down, they gave Xue Qingyan some buffer time. After Zhu Qingwen and Qin Ran ordered the dishes, they talked in low voices. Qin Sheng sat next to Xue Qingyan, not afraid that Xue Qingyan was staring at him as if he was a monster. Sister, I didn't expect Qin Sheng to be your nephew. When we met last time, you guys didn't acknowledge each other, right? Xue Qingyan finally came back to her senses. No matter how much she couldn't figure it out, it was just like that. But after asking this question, she felt it was too naive. If Zhu Qingwen and Qin Sheng had recognized each other at that time, perhaps Yin Chaozong and his gang would not have dared to deal with Qin Sheng. Zhu Qingwen drank tea and smiled. Of course, we didn't know each other at that time. You may not know. Actually, I only saw him yesterday. It was also yesterday that I knew he was my nephew who had been separated from me for more than 20 years. Although he has been back for some time, this news was not announced to the public. Separated for more than 20 years. Xue Qingyan frowned slightly. Qin Sheng smiled and explained, Sister, you know about my past. Since I was a child, my grandfather and I depended on each other. I have been growing up in Xin. Even I did not expect that I would have other relatives. This is life. Zhu Qingwen added, This is about the past of our Zhu and Qin families. After my sister passed away, Qin Sheng's grandfather took him away. We searched all over the country, but there was no news at all. It has been more than 20 years since then. It was not until a few months ago that Qin Sheng's father found him. Then our family was reunited. After Qin Sheng and Zhu Qingwen's explanation, Xue Qingyan finally understood. She was not so surprised anymore. She just felt that it was too magical. Perhaps even Qin Sheng himself did not expect it. After being separated for more than 20 years, I did not expect it to be so complicated. It is really fate. Xue Qingyan sighed. Zhu Qingwen said with a smile, Let's not talk about the past. Let it go with the wind. After all, Qin Sheng is finally back now. We are completely relieved. That's true. Xue Qingyan nodded silently. At this time, Zhu Qingwen continued, Qingyan, there is no other reason for me to ask you out today. I just want to thank you in person on behalf of the Zhu and Qin families. Qin Sheng has told us everything about you. I did not expect you to help him so much. Xue Qingyan was a little surprised. She looked at Qin Sheng and then sighed. Sister, I actually did not help Qin Sheng much. If I really did help him, he would not be so down and out. On the contrary, he helped me a lot. Sister, don't say that. Before I came back, you were the only one who treated me so well. Qin Sheng sighed. At this time, Qin Ran also said thoughtfully, Qingyan, I know a lot of things. You have tried your best, but there is no other way. Neither Qin Sheng nor we will blame you. After all, you have no choice. Qin Ran and Xue Qingyan were about the same age, so it was not wrong to call Xue Qingyan by this name. I know, but I really do not deserve your thanks. I just treat Qin Sheng as my younger brother. Xue Qingyan nodded, but still was not willing to accept Zhu Qingwen's gratitude. Zhu Qingwen knew Xue Qingyan's character well. She chuckled and said, Since Qingyan has said so, let's not talk about these polite words. Today, we're just friends talking about the old days. What do you think? That's good. Xue Qingyan smiled and nodded. At this time, the waiter opened the door and asked if the dishes were ready to be served. Zhu Qingwen said yes and ordered a bottle of good red wine. Such a happy occasion. How could they not drink? Although they were all driving, it was not a problem. Qin Ran had already called the bodyguards to come over. The atmosphere of the dinner was very harmonious. It was a drama with 3 women, so the topic naturally focused on Qin Sheng. Zhu Qingwen and Qin Ran were very curious about how they got to know each other and what happened in Shanghai. Xue Qingyan told them one by one, including the bad impression she had of Qin Sheng at the beginning, and so on. Everyone could not help but laugh. Of course, Zhu Qingwen also told Xue Qingyan about Qin Sheng's childhood. When the dinner was about to end, Zhu Qingwen left with Qin Ran. They went directly to the old foreign-style house to accompany the old lady. At the same time, they left some time for Qin Sheng and Xue Qingyan to talk about the old days. After seeing Zhu Qingwen and Qin Ran out, when they returned to the private room, Shui Qingyan suddenly hugged Qin Sheng without any warning, which made Qin Sheng very surprised and even more helpless. Shui Qingyan said emotionally, "It's been more than 2 months. I finally see you again. I am relieved to see that you are fine." Such a beautiful woman hugged Qin Sheng, but he could not move, which was really embarrassing. However, smelling the light fragrance on Shui Qingyan's body and hearing her sincere words, Qin Sheng gradually calmed down. Finally, he hugged her and said, "Sister, I made you worry. As long as you are fine, it is nothing," Shui Qingyan said with her eyes closed. She did not know why she was so impulsive, but she did not care about it anymore. Qin Sheng suddenly felt emotional and said, "Sister, do you think it is a loser's counterattack? A loser who could be bullied by anyone and was chased like a dog has now become a rich playboy. It is really funny and sad." Hearing this, Shui Qingyan burst into laughter and let go of Qin Sheng. She laughed and said, "A loser's counterattack? I am afraid that you're the only loser's counterattack in the world." Qin Sheng thought about it. He dared not say that he was the only one, but it was definitely rare. Chapter 419. It begins quietly. Monthly votes. Monthly votes. At this moment, in a villa community in Haikau, an old man with gray hair and a wrinkled face was making a phone call. He heard Qin Chang'an and Qin Sheng's name most of the time. The old man's face was somewhat pale. He had been fighting with the Qin family for so many years, but in the end, he did not gain any advantage. Did he really not gain any advantage? Under the joint encirclement and suppression of several tycoons, the Qin family was almost destroyed and paid a heavy price in the end. Qin Sheng's mother, who was in her prime, passed away. His uncle, who had a bright future, became a monk. His aunt, who had lost all hope, went to Canada. His young and vigorous father almost gave up. Even his grandfather, who was used to experiencing ups and downs, also took him out of the stage of Suzhou City. However, the Qin family finally got through the most difficult time. In the past 10 years, the Qin family's development had been even more rapid. Not to mention Qin Chang'an's domineering influence in the business world. The Zhou family's development in both the military and the political fields had stunned people. At this time, no one dared to bully the Zhou family and the Qin family anymore. Therefore, some people began to be afraid. They were afraid that what had happened in the past would be exposed. Once it was known, they would definitely pay a heavy price. However, for these tycoons, they would definitely not wait for death. After all, they were also powerful. Therefore, another encirclement and suppression of the Qin family began quietly. "Dad, do you mean a breakthrough with Qin Chang'an first?" A middle-aged man in the #1 courtyard of Daitai, in Beijing, said with burning eyes. He had lost to Qin Chang'an many times in the business world, but he had never admitted defeat. The old man knocked on the table, his eyes full of murderous intent. "It seems to be glorious, but in fact, it is full of dangers. Everyone wants to be strong, but in front of the national policy, it is like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. In the past 2 years, who dares to say that they will not be investigated? Who can guarantee that they will not collapse?" The middle-aged man said thoughtfully, "Dad, you're right. Recently, the supervision of the financial industry has become stricter. Although Qin Chang'an has taken the initiative to make concessions, it's not easy for him to withdraw from such a big business. I'm afraid that he'll have to cut his losses after the new year. After all, the foreign exchange control has been completely blocked. I'm afraid that his projects abroad will be stillborn. At that time, his company will collapse." The old man squinted and said, "Don't look down on Qin Chang'an. He is not as simple as you think. Otherwise, how could he have made you suffer so many losses all these years? These things still need to be considered at length. I'll go back and discuss with those two families." "Okay, Dad. I'll wait for your good news. But what about his son? Do we need to be a bit more ruthless and in the Qin family's bloodline?" sneered the middle-aged man. It had to be said that this method was a bit ruthless. The old man's expression changed slightly as he said, "Don't act recklessly. It's not that stage yet. Besides, even if you want to do that, you should do it at the last moment. You can't blow it up right at the beginning. If you do that, Qin Chang'an will be driven to desperate measures. Dad, you're right. Then I'll continue to inquire about the information. The middle-aged man smiled bitterly. As the saying goes, old ginger is spicier. At that time, after bringing Qin Chang'an down and giving him a fatal blow, this man might really be disabled. It was not that there was no precedent. That matter had caused a lot of trouble in the city. After hanging up the phone, the old man was lost in thought. At that time, the Zhu family did not do anything. Now if they took action again, would the Zhu family intervene? After all, their relationship with the Qin family was not good. However, he still had to think of a foolproof plan. He could not be caught unprepared. However, these were not the most worrying thing. What he was most worried about was whether the old master of the Qin family was alive or dead. There had been no news for so many years. As for Qin Chang'an's brother, it seemed that he had escaped to Buddhism. Wasn't he advancing by retreating? At that time, the crisis ended with old Master Qin taking Qin Sheng away. Now, the crisis began with Qin Sheng's return. Could the Qin family survive this time? What would be the final result of Qin Sheng in this crisis? It had to be said that Qin Chang'an did not rashly acknowledge Qin Sheng, which was the best choice. Unfortunately, Qin Sheng did not know the pros and cons of this. In a restaurant on Dongdaming Road in Shanghai, Qin Sheng naturally did not know these things. Of course, Qin Chang'an did not know either. However, Qin Chang'an was not necessarily unprepared. These years, he was used to seeing storms. He had always been prepared for a rainy day, so he had survived many crises safely. Hearing Qin Sheng's complaint, Xue Qingyan found it funny and said, "Then let me ask you, do you value this identity more, or do you value the long-lost kinship more?" Qin Sheng replied without hesitation, "Of course the latter. Without the former, I can still live a good life. It's just that I have chosen a different life path. But without the latter, I will have some regrets in my life." Xue Qingyan said with a smile, "That's it. So don't think about those useless things." Of course, she knew that Qin Sheng had a lot of doubts in his heart. After all, the contrast was too big. She was afraid that he could not really accept it for a while. However, Xue Qingyan said immediately, "Let's take a step back. Don't you want to take revenge? If you have this identity, you could take revenge earlier and easier. You don't need to wait for 10 or 20 years. Also, don't be unreasonable. Those people can bully you like that. Do they really have the strength? Didn't they also rely on their father's shadow? It's just that they are luckier than you." "Sister, you are right." Qin Sheng did not deny these words. Xue Qingyan continued to analyze for Qin Sheng. "As for other things, you should take a broader view. In the past, when you were standing here, you could only think and do these high-level things. Now that you're standing here, you can think and do more things. Only then can you really realize the value of your life." When Xue Qingyan said these words, she gestured to Qin Sheng at the same time to let him see more clearly. Her words made Qin Sheng suddenly see the light. At the same time, he thought a lot of things. Qin Sheng said sincerely, "Sister, thank you. After hearing this, I have thought through a lot of things. Don't be so polite. I'm also happy for you. I hope that you can live a better life no matter in the past or in the future," Xue Qingyan said sincerely. At this time, Qin Sheng suggested, "Sister, I haven't seen you for more than 2 months. It's rare that it's the new year. Let's find a place to continue drinking. I have a lot to talk to you about." Xue Qingyan was also in a good mood. She agreed directly. "Okay. Anyway, I have something to ask you." Qin Sheng stood up and said, "Then let's go." When Zhu Qingwen left, she had already paid the bill. The boss personally sent Qin Sheng and Xue Qingyan to the door of the restaurant. After watching them get in the car and leave, he returned to the restaurant. "This woman is not simple," Qin Sheng said thoughtfully. Xue Qingyan explained with a smile, "What do you think? She used to be a staff of the Beijing office. Later, because of some things, she resigned and opened this restaurant. So many people are willing to support her. She is a person who does things very well." "No wonder." Qin Sheng nodded silently. Xue Qingyan said emotionally, "Qin Sheng, in the future, you will know that those big shots in your eyes in the past are not what many people think. They seem to be approachable, but in fact, sometimes friendliness is a kind of attitude. It means alienation, vigilance, and condescension. Don't look at how they treat you. You should look at how their subordinates and colleagues treat them. Many ordinary people like to say that they are illusory and low-key. In fact, they only see the disguised side. And many ordinary people like to evaluate the so-called celebrities according to their own imagination. In fact, you are too far away from their lives. You don't know what the truth is like at all. I know a big shot. He doesn't smoke, doesn't drink, and doesn't talk extravagantly. He is a perfect and low-key person. When they meet, he politely exchanges business cards with you. The truth is that he likes to fool around with women. He spends a lot of money on it. He is polite to you to show his attitude. The phone number and email on the business card he gives you are never managed by himself. When you give him the business card, he casually throws it away. How can you know his true face? After hearing this, Qin Sheng was quite touched. It seemed that in the future, they would treat him differently. But Qin Sheng asked with interest, "Then what is this woman doing today?" Her? This is called walking on thin ice and being respectful. It is a different type. Who asked your uncle to be so prominent? Shui Qingyan laughed. It was so easy to chat with smart people. He could instantly draw inferences and remember it. Qin Sheng deliberately joked, "Sister, your brother is not worse than my uncle." Shui Qingyan was not surprised that Qin Sheng knew about this. She just smiled and said, "It seems that you know all about it. But what do you mean by not worse than your uncle? Do you know how difficult it is to take that step? It is not an exaggeration to say that it is harder than going to heaven. Many people are stuck in that position for a lifetime, but Shanghai is better. At least there are more opportunities to transfer." Qin Sheng suddenly felt that it was good to change his identity. After all, when talking to Shui Qingyan, he was not as uneasy and unconfident as before. Finally, he could make fun of her. He smiled and said, "I believe you will." Shui Qingyan suddenly asked, "Be honest. Did you know it before? Is it also because of this reason that you get along with me?" Qin Sheng honestly said, "You won't believe it if I say no. But these things were too far away from me in the past. How could I have the chance to meet such a person?" Shui Qingyan chuckled and said, "That's more like it. By the way, where are we going? Do you want me to take you to a place?" "Hengshan Road. I don't know if it is open. If not, you can take me there." Qin Sheng said casually. He was going to the young bar on Hengshan Road, which was the bar that left the deepest impression on him. Shui Qingyan did not ask for the reason. She just nodded and said, "Okay." The driver was a bodyguard brought by the Qin family from Beijing. He had been waiting for Qin Sheng downstairs. At this time, they had already walked 2 blocks and were waiting for the red light at the intersection. At this time, a portion next to them suddenly rolled down the window. A man threw the cigarette, but on the ground without manners, and spat. Qin Sheng frowned slightly and looked over subconsciously. He wanted to know who was so rude. Chapter 420. Back. A new month has begun. Everyone, please cast your monthly votes. Fate was a mysterious thing. For those who were not destined to meet each other, even if they passed by each other 100,000 times, they would not be able to exchange a glance. For those who were destined to meet each other for the first time, they would see each other for 10,000 years. However, in life, most people were not destined to meet each other. Even if they had accompanied each other for many years, they would eventually disappear in the vast sea of people and no longer contact or meet each other. There were also some people who were destined to meet each other. For example, the man Qin Sheng saw at the moment, who was very uncultured. If they were still friends, Qin Sheng might sigh and say that it was a small world. However, they were not friends, but enemies. So Qin Sheng could only say that enemies often met on a narrow road. In a city with a population of tens of millions, the probability of 2 people meeting each other by chance was too small. Even if many people lived in the same city, if they did not deliberately contact each other, they might not meet each other by chance even once in their lifetime. However, Qin Sheng had just returned to Shanghai and was waiting for a traffic light when he met the culprit who betrayed him, killed Qingyang, and almost killed him at this critical moment. He was none other than Gu Xiaobo, luxury cars, beautiful women, and glamorous. Was this the reward for betraying him? No wonder he betrayed him. After all, he could not give these things to Gu Xiaobo in a short time. However, this life was not only about money. If everyone thought that money was the most important, then most people would eventually become the walking dead. The further they went, the lonelier they would be. There are many things more important than money, such as family and brothers. However, in this society where many people thought that they could do whatever they wanted with money, for most people, family and brothers were really not as good as having a lot of money in their hands. Therefore, this was an era where faith was lacking and it was easy to get lost. At this moment, Qin Sheng did not think so much. He just stared at Gu Xiaobo, who seemed to have completely changed. His whole body was full of impetuousness and darkness, and he was no longer the clean Gu Xiaobo. Xue Qingyan was in the middle of sending a WeChat message, so she did not notice Qin Sheng's strange behavior. At this moment, the red light turned, the Porsche stepped on the accelerator and rushed out. Qin Sheng said to the bodyguard in front, "Brother Zheng, chase that car." The bodyguard called Brother Zheng did not ask why. Without hesitation, he stepped on the accelerator and chased after the Porsche in front of him. He was a bodyguard who had been trained by the Qin family for many years and had followed Qin Sheng on for many years. He was taught by Zhuang Zhou step by step. Whether it was loyalty or strength, he was not bad. Otherwise, he would not have followed Qin Ran and Qin Sheng to Shanghai. Xue Qingyan came to her senses and asked, "What's wrong?" Qin Sheng squinted and said, "I didn't expect that it would be such a coincidence that I would run into my enemy while waiting for a red light. Of course, I can't just let it go." Xue Qingyan did not know what had happened in Huangmei town. She just frowned and said, "Yin Chaozong?" "No." Qin Sheng shook his head and said, "Sister, you have seen this man before, but you are not familiar with him. However, such an insignificant person betrayed me at the last moment and almost let me die outside. His name is Gu Xiaobo, Lao Chang's martial nephew. At that time, he followed me together with Gu Qingyang, his senior and junior brother. That night, he betrayed me and revealed my information to Yin Chaozong. If his junior brother, Gu Qingyang, had not risked his life to protect me, I am afraid that I would not be here now." Xue Qingyan understood and said, "I see." As expected, a lot of things had happened that night. Although Qin Sheng said it so casually, the process must have been thrilling. Qin Sheng muttered to himself, "Qingyang, rest in peace. I will definitely avenge you." Qin Sheng and the others took a Mercedes-Benz E-Series. Although its performance was not as good as that of a Porsche in a metropolis like Shanghai, even a Bugatti could not run well. Therefore, it was not a problem to follow a person. Moreover, Brother Zheng was a professional bodyguard, so this kind of thing was not difficult for him. They followed from Yin and East Road all the way to Xiniandi South Road without being discovered. The Porsche finally stopped by the roadside. They randomly found a parking space. Gu Xiaobo and a beautiful woman got out of the car slowly and walked inside. Qin Sheng did not get out of the car. He just stared at Gu Xiaobo, who was far away, thoughtfully. Brother Zheng asked casually, "Young master, do you want to follow them in?" Qin Sheng hesitated for a moment and said, "Brother Zheng, I will give you a task. These 2 days you do nothing but help me keep an eye on this man. Find out where he lives and who he has been in contact with. I will tell my sister later." Brother Zheng still did not say much. He nodded silently and said, "Okay, young master, don't worry. I promise to complete the task." The car was left to Brother Zheng. Qin Sheng and Xue Qingyan took a taxi to Hengshan Road. Xue Qingyan had no objection to this. After all, Qin Sheng now had the strength to face these enemies. She was afraid that when the time came, he would surprise them and they might regret what they had done. Therefore, one should not bully a poor young man. There were not many people on Hengshan Road during the Spring Festival. However, there were still many people staying in this city. As for why they did not want to go home for the Spring Festival, perhaps only they themselves knew. Moreover, there were millions of foreign friends here. They did not have the habit of celebrating the Spring Festival. There were fewer and fewer bars on Hengshan Road. Those that could continue to do so were either old bars with good business and more repeat customers, or rich bars that were not afraid of losing money, as long as they still had feelings for the spring festival. Which kind of bar was Young? It should be both. The business of this bar was not bad. The boss was Su Qin. This bar had left too many memories for Su Qin. Therefore, she had been persevering. Moreover, as a fair, rich, and beautiful woman, Su Qin did not lack money. When Qin Sheng and Xue Qingyan arrived at the entrance of Young Bar, they felt lucky that the bar was still open during the Spring Festival. Otherwise, they would have to move to another place. In fact, they did not know that the bar had a few days off for the Spring Festival and had reopened last night. Qin Sheng could not be more familiar with this place. It was still the same inside. However, there were not many customers at this time. There were only 4 or 5 scattered tables. After all, today was the 4th day of the Spring Festival. Perhaps from tomorrow onwards, those people scattered everywhere like fireworks would return to Shanghai. Qin Sheng took Xue Qingyan to a quiet place. In the past, he had quietly watched Su Qin sing there. At this time, a waiter came over and asked them what they would like to drink. Qin Sheng asked Xue Qingyan to order. Xue Qingyan casually ordered a bottle of red wine and fruit snacks. They were here to chat. The resident singer on the stage was a girl. She was singing Xie Chuanhua's Lend Me. Nowadays, there were more and more talented female singers. Qin Sheng was not surprised that there were still people who came out to sing during the Spring Festival. After all, in this seemingly bustling city, there were still many people struggling in the abyss of suffering. Perhaps they were wanderers who did not want to go home and simply found a job to kill their loneliness and loneliness. There were all kinds of possibilities. Now you can talk about it. You're back. Where are the others? And what happened that night? Xue Qingyan asked with interest. Qin Sheng sighed and said, "We knew it was too dangerous to stay in Hangzhou. After all, we had offended so many people. So we decided to leave Hangzhou that night. I asked Lin Su to go back to Ningbo in advance. After all, it was not safe for her to follow me. At least, she did not need to worry about me if she stayed in the Lin family. After that, we divided into 3 groups and left Hangzhou that night in order to deceive people. Hao Lei and Tang, she went in the direction of Taizhou. Lao Chong went in another direction. Gu Xiaobo, Gu Qingyang, and I went in the direction of Hubei. We tried to find a way to change cars in the city and get rid of those who followed us. After a long time, we finally got out of the city. We thought our plan was flawless. Who knew? Speaking of this, Qin Sheng let out a long sigh. Then he continued, Lao Chong and I agreed to meet in Huang, Maytown, and Hubei. It was a pity that Gu Xiaobo had already revealed our plan to Yin Chaozong and the others. They were waiting for me there. The ending was tragic. Gu Xiaobo's betrayal led me to a dead end. Gu Qingyang died in Huang, Maytown, to protect me. Later, I knew that Lao Chong was also seriously injured that night. After that, I escaped from Huang, Maytown to Zhejiang City. Then I took a train to Tsingtao with another identity. Later, I met my sister and was taken back to Beijing. Xue Qingyan was a little confused. She asked confusedly, "How did you escape that night? How did you end up in Tsingtao? How did your family find you in Tsingtao?" Qin Sheng knew that Xue Qingyan was going to ask this question. He replied, "Actually, my father had found me long ago. However, he had been protecting me secretly all the time. When I was in Huangmei town, if it hadn't been for him, I would have died there that night. At first, I went to Tsingtao because I had an old friend there. I want to make a comeback there. Unexpectedly, I offended them again. Later, my sister showed up." Xue Qingyan asked curiously, "When did they find you?" Qin Sheng hesitated for a while and said, "It started the year before last. I know you're going to ask why. In fact, I don't understand many things. I'm afraid that I will understand them later." Xue Qingyan said thoughtfully, "Well, I guess they have their reasons. Anyway, as long as they come back, everything will be fine. By the way, where are Lao Chong and the others?" Qin Sheng said slowly, "I went back to Xin before the Spring Festival and met Hao Lei. He has been in Xi'an since he came back from Hangzhou. However, I couldn't get in touch with Lao Chong. I don't know where he has gone. Lin Su has been in the Lin family all the time. It's just that the Lin family has put her under house arrest. I'm a little speechless about that family. I will go to Ningbo to pick her up in 2 days." At that time, I will reason with them. Do you need my help? Xue Qingyan asked casually. However, she gave up immediately. After all, Qin Sheng was not the same person as before. Qin Sheng said happily, "Sister, when you need my help, I won't stand on ceremony." At this time, the waiters served the wine, fruits, and snacks. Qin Sheng glanced at them casually and found that all the waiters in the bar had been changed. Then he looked for the manager who was in charge of the bar and found that he had also been replaced. Qin Sheng could not help frowning. What was going on? Consequently, Qin Sheng said to the waiter, "Call your manager here. I'm an old customer here. I have something to ask him." The waiter did not ask anything. After he put down the things, he left. After he said a few words to the manager, the new manager walked over with a smile. The manager, who was dressed in a suit and leather shoes, was very spirited. He asked politely, "Hello, how can I help you?" Qin Sheng was a little confused as he asked, "Did you change your boss here?" Upon hearing this question, the manager instantly understood what was going on. That was because many people had asked about this recently. He said happily, "Oh, it seems that you are also an old customer. However, you haven't been here for a long time. We changed our boss before the Spring Festival." Qin Sheng was surprised as he asked why. The manager thought that the man in front of him must be a fan of the former beautiful boss. He smiled with a knowing look and said, "I heard from our boss that the former beautiful boss left Shanghai and went back to her hometown in Xi'an. That's why she changed hands and took over this bar." Upon hearing this news, Qin Sheng was instantly shocked and at a loss. Su Qin went back. Chapter 421. Goodbye, goodbye. In order to save manuscript for the new year, I have updated 2 chapters recently. I am not sure about 1 chapter, but I will update 2 chapters after 3 chapters. Otherwise, I will definitely stop updating after the new year. I hope you can understand. Cherish the people you should cherish, care about the people you should care about, and let go of the people you should let go. This was Qin Sheng's biggest experience during this period. After all, he had wasted too much time on unimportant people in these years, but he rarely left time for those who really cared about him. Qin Sheng's feelings for this woman, who he had known for 14 years and accompanied him for 6 years, were too complicated. Su Qin gave him the best youth, but what did he give to Su Qin? He had known Su Qin, who was smart, beautiful, and kind since he was in junior high school. Su Qin became his girlfriend in senior high school. At that time, he was the object of everyone's envy. After all, he had won the heart of most boys of his age in senior high school. At that time, Su Qin was so excellent that all the girls were eclipsed. No wonder Wu Hao's resentment lasted for so many years. Although Qin Sheng lacked family love, he had the love that everyone envied at the most brilliant age. Su Qin made up for a lot of things that he lacked. Therefore, Qin Sheng did not rebel or degenerate at that age. Instead, he worked hard for the future with Su Qin's company. When he was in college, Su Qin accompanied him to Fudan University regardless of all the objections of her family. Otherwise, she might have gone to Beijing. During these 4 years, they lived a life like an immortal couple. Su Qin took good care of him. Almost all of Qin Sheng's clothes and daily necessities were bought by Su Qin. They went to classes together, went to the library together, ate together, went shopping together, traveled together, and sang together. Qin Sheng's treatment made his other 3 friends in the dormitory admire him so much that they almost worshipped him. These 6 years were the best time for both Qin Sheng and Su Qin. This was also their youth, and they loved each other the most in their youth. They were lucky to meet each other and accompany each other. Unfortunately, in the season of breaking up after graduation, they could not escape this fate. Although Su Qin took the initiative to break up, the real reason was Qin Sheng. Su Qin could not understand Qin Sheng. She felt that after 6 years, she still could not really walk into Qin Sheng's heart. At that time, Qin Sheng was choosing his life again because of his grandfather's death. He did not want Su Qin to wait for 2 or 3 years. As a result, Qin Sheng agreed to break up with Su Qin. Su Qin, who did not intend to break up with him, did not expect this at all. However, Su Qin was so outstanding. Of course, she would have the restraint that a woman should have. She would not easily put down her pride and dignity to ask for peace. Originally, she thought that Qin Sheng would coax her after a period of time. After all, when they had some small conflicts in the past, Qin Sheng would always take the initiative to apologize and admit his mistakes. He had never let her suffer any grievances. However, she was wrong this time. When she came back to her senses, she found out that Qin Sheng's grandfather had passed away. Only then did she realize how big of a mistake she had made. However, when she wanted to look for Qin Sheng, he had already disappeared in the vast crowd, and she could no longer contact him. Su Qin panicked, completely panicked. She had contacted everyone, but she could not find Qin Sheng no matter how hard she tried. This was also the reason why many people were very dissatisfied with Su Qin after knowing about this. They thought that Qin Sheng chose to disappear because he had suffered a double blow. Because when Qin Sheng needed Su Qin the most, she chose to break up with him. Everyone blamed Su Qin, except for Qin Sheng. This was also the reason why Qin Sheng always spoke up for Su Qin every time others were dissatisfied with her. After all, they used to have each other. After all, they used to be companions. Even if they could not be boyfriend and girlfriend, even if they could not help each other in times of hardship and could only forget each other in Jianghu, they did not want to become enemies who could not contact each other even in death. Otherwise, when they recalled the relationship at the beginning, they would only think of disgust instead of the beautiful past. At that time, Su Qin was really heartbroken. She spent as long as a year to heal. Originally, she wanted to take the postgraduate entrance examination, but she completely gave up. It was not until she became busy with work that she gradually forgot the relationship. However, she did not completely let it go. Otherwise, she would not have stayed in Shanghai, would not have accepted this bar, and would not have refused her parents' suggestion that she study abroad. She just wanted to wait for Qin Sheng in Shanghai, waiting for him to come back and give her an explanation. 1 year passed. 2 years passed. When she saw Qin Sheng again, the 3rd year was almost over. When she saw Qin Sheng again, Su Qin found that Qin Sheng had changed. He became a little strange. She could not understand Qin Sheng even more. However, she still wanted to save the relationship. After all, the relationship was really beautiful. She fought for it several times, but there was still no result. Although she did not say, "Let's start over," she believed that Qin Sheng could understand her idea. After all, they had been together for so many years. Qin Sheng knew her better than anyone else. However, Qin Sheng did not give her a chance. As a result, Su Qin started to doubt whether Qin Sheng had really loved her. If he had really loved her, she had not let go of their feelings for so many years. How could Qin Sheng let it go so easily? Since Qin Sheng came back, she had cried her heart out for him several times. Every time she wanted to contact Qin Sheng, he suddenly disappeared again. Su Qin was a little confused. She did not know if it was worth it for her to do so. The heavy rain that night in Hangzhou completely woke Su Qin up. She knew that Qin Sheng was not that Qin Sheng anymore, and she was still that Su Qin. She could not lean on Qin Sheng's shoulder anymore. It seemed that apart from Qin Sheng, she only had her parents left. So Su Qin was really sad. She had been waiting for Qin Sheng. She finally got it. She wanted to start the relationship that had lasted for 6 years again. She had fought for it. Since then, she had no regrets. Moreover, Qin Sheng had a new girlfriend. So it was meaningless to continue to stay in Shanghai. After all, there was only loneliness left in this city. At least she still had the beauty of the past, and at least she still had her parents. So, after careful consideration, Su Qin finally quit her job, sold her house, and sold the bar. She left Shanghai completely and went back to Xi'an. She felt that the first half of her life was over. There was love, friendship, youth, beauty, and also mistakes. Although the result was not satisfactory, it was really worth it. However, Qin Sheng, who had been enlightened, began to treat his heart seriously again. Could he really let go of a woman he had known for 14 years and been in love with for 6 years so easily? In the past, Qin Sheng had thought that the road he was walking on was too difficult and that Su Qin would only suffer hardships and be tired if she followed him. No man would let his beloved woman suffer such grievances. Consequently, Qin Sheng had chosen to give up and hoped that Su Qin could have a simple happiness. It was true. Even a woman like Lin Su had suffered so much with him, let alone Su Qin. How could he not know Su Qin's mind? When he knew that Su Qin took over the bar, he already understood. Moreover, when he met Su Qin again, she still treated him the same as before. But he was too selfish at that time. He only thought about his life and forced his ideas on Su Qin. He did not ask her what she thought and took the initiative to make a decision for her. Later, he got to know Lin Su and felt that a woman like Lin Su was more suitable to stay with him. Therefore, he could only let go of Su Qin and let her find the happiness that belonged to her. This might be the best ending for both of them. Besides, he had promised Su Qin's father, so he was so determined. Did he really let go of Su Qin? No. Did he still love Su Qin? Yes. However, it was meaningless now because Su Qin had completely let go of him. At this time, Qin Sheng knew how deep his love for Su Qin was. It was so deep that it had been integrated into his blood and engraved in the depth of his brain. So, after knowing this news, Qin Sheng felt heartache. Qin Sheng, what's wrong with you? Shui Qingyan found Qin Sheng's abnormality and asked confusedly. Qin Sheng said sadly, "Sister, there was a girl who accompanied me for 6 years and waited for me for 4 years. But I let her down. Do you think I'm a jerk?" Shui Qingyan was stunned. She did not know what Qin Sheng meant. But then she thought that Qin Sheng brought her here and asked the manager if there was a new boss. Coupled with what the manager had said, Shui Qingyan roughly guessed that the beautiful boss should be the girl who had accompanied him for 6 years and waited for him for 4 years. She did not expect that Qin Sheng would have such a relationship. The manager standing next to her was also a little confused. Hearing Qin Sheng's words, he could not help guessing that the girl this man mentioned was the former beautiful boss. It was impossible. He heard that the beautiful boss had been single. Besides, the beautiful boss was so excellent. How could this man match her? But then he looked at Shui Qingyan. This beautiful girl was not inferior to the beautiful boss at all. Maybe it was true. Do you have a clear conscience? Shui Qingyan asked casually. Qin Sheng asked himself, did he have a clear conscience? He laughed at himself and said, she gave the best youth of her life to me, but I let her down. How can I have a clear conscience? Shui Qingyan did not know what to say at this moment. She did not know what Qin Sheng was thinking at this moment. After all, she knew that Qin Sheng still had Lin Su. Obviously, Qin Sheng could not let go of this girl. Alas, what is love in the world? It makes people live and die for it. At this time, the female singer who sang Xie Chenhua's Lend Me on the stage happened to sing the last sentence, quietly watching the time slip away. Lend me to you, speechless. Don't care, don't ask, don't say, don't read. Qin Sheng seemed to see Su Qin, who stood there and sang quietly and only smiled at him when he was in college. After she finished singing, she walked over and asked carefully, is it good? Qin Sheng stood up slowly and walked to the stage under Shui Qingyan's astonished gaze. He whispered a few words to the resident female singer and then took over the guitar from the girl's hand. He faced the audience and said, there was once a girl who sat here and sang quietly. There was a boy who listened to her quietly in the audience. To her, the boy was her real audience because the boy had listened to her songs for 6 years. Then the boy disappeared. The girl waited for him for 4 years, but he did not cherish her. When he realized what he had lost, he might not find the girl again. This song is for the girl and the boy. It is for the best 6 years of their time. Qin Sheng gently strummed the guitar. The sweet sound made him feel like he was back to the high school playground. It was sunny that day, and the breeze was gentle. She was wearing a white dress, and he was wearing a white school uniform. He was singing, and she was listening. The sound of the car broke the silence. I can hear, but can't see clearly. My figure under the street lamp is the shortest distance. Most intimate. The sound of the car broke the silence. I can hear, but can't see clearly. Suddenly quiet. My figure under the street lamp is the shortest distance. Most intimate. I have exhausted all my strength. Still not in the same world. Oh, then let me hold your hand for the last time. Say it together. Goodbye, 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 goodbye 100 times. If we never meet again, 10,000 times. Although Qin Sheng did not have the cooperation of other instruments and only had a simple guitar, he was completely immersed in his own world. He did not care what other guests would think of him. He only sang this song for Su Qin and himself. When he finished the last chorus, Qin Sheng was already shouting goodbye, goodbye hysterically. His voice was a little sad, and a little distressed. At the end of the song, Qin Sheng's eyes turned red and he laughed like a fool. He laughed so hard that his tears came out. He did not care about the way everyone looked at him, as if he were a monster. He put the guitar aside gently and walked to Shui Qingyan slowly. Sister, let's go. Chapter 422. Knowing the limits, there were 80,000 words in the world, but only the word love was the most hurtful. Love, hate, parting, and sorrow. Only love could be related to these words. No wonder that most of the poems and songs from ancient times to the present were about love. Qin Sheng gave the song goodbye to Su Qin himself and the youth that had passed away. After singing this song, he would not come to the young bar again, nor would he disturb Su Qin's life. He would completely let go of this relationship. That was why Qin Sheng was so heartbroken when he sang the last goodbye. It turned out that he had not let go of this relationship. They had known each other for 14 years and been in love for 6 years. Many people would be envious of such a relationship. How many people could let go of such a relationship? Qin Sheng thought that he had taken this relationship lightly. But when he really wanted to let go, he knew how difficult and reluctant it was. He suddenly hated himself, hated his self-righteousness, hated his selfishness and conceit. Since he still liked Su Qin, why did he have to do this and think it was the most right thing to do? In the end, he hurt Su Qin and himself. One turn, one miss, and it was a lifetime. At this moment, Qin Sheng knew how determined Su Qin was when she was ready to let go of this relationship and leave Shanghai. How much she suffered and how many tears she shed before she chose to leave. She was so excellent and proud. She put down all her dignity and went crazy for love. She tried hard, she fought for it, and she was also heartbroken. So, let's say goodbye. At least there would be no regret. Qin Sheng asked himself, what about him? What did he do? Just let it be. If he could not let go, he would let it go slowly. He would let it go eventually. Sometimes it might be the best to never forget. As for what he owed, he would pay it back slowly. He would pay it back eventually. After coming out of the young bar, Qin Sheng stood at the door of the bar and smoked in a daze. Shui Qingyan, who paid the bill and came out, did not know whether to laugh or cry. He was really a sentimental person. As for these things about love, Shui Qingyan would not enlighten anyone. It was the right choice for everyone to follow his heart. Do you still want a drink? Shui Qingyan asked casually. Qin Sheng was in a bad mood. What's more, he had tortured Shui Qingyan, so he said, yes, it's rare for me to be so happy. I have to drink with you. Sister, this time I will go wherever you want to go. I will risk my life to accompany you. Shui Qingyan felt even more helpless. Was he in a good mood? It was obvious that she was in a bad mood. She did not even bother to respond to him. I'm a little woman, not a gentleman. Besides, I'm not here to compete with you in drinking. But who asked him to be Qin Sheng? If it was any other man, she would naturally ignore him. Shui Qingyan did not intend to go too far. After all, this was Hengshan Road. No matter how desolate it was, there were still a few bars. So she randomly found a bar nearby and sat down. In the beginning, Qin Sheng was just drinking to drown his sorrows. In the end, he began to talk about the past of him and the girl named Su Qin, whom he had been in love with for 6 years. Shui Qingyan was not very interested, but she was the only person Qin Sheng could confide in. She had to listen even if she did not want to. However, as she listened, she became fascinated and began to envy Qin Sheng and Su Qin's love life in high school and college. Most people would be envious. There were no big storms or big waves. It was just an ordinary campus life, only a little bit of warmth and sorrow. However, Shui Qingyan already knew the ending of the story. Naturally, Qin Sheng and the girl named Su Qin did not get together. Otherwise, he would not be so sad. Otherwise, Lin Su would not exist. Shui Qingyan did not know why she somewhat envied Su Qin. At least she had known Qin Sheng for 14 years and had him for at least 6 years. Perhaps no woman could compare with her. Qin Sheng, who was good at drinking, did not know whether it was because he had not recovered in these days or because he was drunk. After drinking more than a bottle of red wine, Qin Sheng was a little unconscious. Shui Qingyan did not know what to do. She could only think of a way to call Sister Zhu Qingwen so that she could send someone to pick up Qin Sheng. At this time, Qin Ran happened to call Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng had not come back at this time. The old lady had nagged her several times and asked her to call Qin Sheng to see when he would come back. She was afraid that something would happen to her grandson outside. Qin Ran did not want to disturb Qin Sheng, but it was really a little late. Even if the old lady did not nag, Qin Ran would suspect whether Qin Sheng and Shui Qingyan had some ambiguous relationship. Qin Sheng's mobile phone was on the table. Seeing the name Sister on it, Shui Qingyan picked it up and told Qin Ran that her baby brother had drunk too much. Qin Ran looked surprised. How'd he drink too much? Not to mention that Qin Sheng was good at drinking. Moreover, there were only 2 of them. Who could make Qin Sheng drunk? After Qin Ran asked, Shui Qingyan briefly explained what happened tonight. Qin Ran then understood and immediately took a taxi to pick up Qin Sheng. Fortunately, it was not too far away. Before Qin Ran left, she did not forget to tell the old lady to hurry up and rest. Otherwise, when Qin Sheng came back drunk, the old lady would be unhappy. When Qin Ran saw Qin Sheng, she stared at him sleeping on the table. She did not know whether to laugh or cry. She said, "You are becoming more and more like a drunkard. Why did you get yourself drunk for such a small thing?" Shui Qingyan said casually, "It's not the wine that makes you drunk. I'm afraid that you think too much tonight. When you sober up tomorrow, you'll be much better." Qin Ran let out a long sigh. The 2 women had no choice but to take Qin Sheng out of the bar. Fortunately, he did not completely lose consciousness. Otherwise, Qin Ran would have to call the bodyguards. 2 stunning beauties supported a man out of the bar. Qin Sheng's treatment made the other men in the bar very envious. Having one of them was enough to make a man live 3 lives without regret. It did not occur to them that this man had 2 at the same time. The most hateful thing was that he was drunk. What a reckless waste of God's gift. Qin Ran and Shui Qingyan struggled to get Qin Sheng into a taxi. Then they went to the old foreign-style house on Sinan Road. Shui Qingyan had to see Qin Sheng back before she left with peace of mind. On the way, Qin Ran remembered that she had arranged a bodyguard to drive the car. Where was the bodyguard? Shui Qingyan thoughtfully told what had happened on the way to Qin Ran. Qin Ran did not ask further. She would ask Qin Sheng when he woke up tomorrow. When the 2 beauties took Qin Sheng back to the old foreign-style house, the old lady was still awake. She sat in the living room, watching TV and waiting for her grandchildren. However, she was already a little drowsy. The nanny reminded her several times, but she insisted on waiting for her grandchildren. "Grandma, why are you still awake?" Qin Ran and Shui Qingyan supported Qin Sheng. When they saw the old lady in the living room, they were a little unhappy. The old lady said angrily, "You haven't come back yet. How can I sleep with peace of mind?" The old lady had already noticed Qin Sheng, who was being supported. She exclaimed and stood up. "Oh, what happened? What happened to my Sheng? Why is he drunk?" Qin Ran was really speechless. The old lady was too surprised. He was just drunk. If Qin Sheng lost an arm or a leg in the future, the old lady would make a scene. "Grandma, nothing happened. I was just in a bad mood and got drunk," Qin Ran explained casually. Shui Qingyan knew the old lady's identity. After all, she knew Zhu Qingwen's family very well, so she greeted her politely. "Hello, Grandma." The old lady had already noticed Shui Qingyan, who was supporting her grandson. She was such a beautiful girl, but she was too shy to ask. At this time, she asked with a smile, "Who is this girl? She's so beautiful. Is she Qin Sheng's girlfriend?" Qin Ran let out a long sigh and said, "Grandma, don't make such a mess. She's not your Sheng Er's girlfriend. She's just his elder sister, who's also a good friend of my small aunt. Can you let us send your Shang back to his room to rest first? Look at him, what a mess he is. Shui Qingyao was also embarrassed by the old lady's words. She did not know how to respond. She did not expect the old lady of the Zhu family to be so interesting. Fortunately, Qin Ran helped her out. The old lady did not say anything more. After all, her Sheng was the most important. She said in a hurry, Okay, send Sheng back to his room first. Then the two women sent Qin Sheng back to his room. Shui Qingyan went out to wait. As Qin Sheng's biological sister, Qin Ran did not have any scruples. She helped Qin Sheng take off his clothes and covered him with a quilt. In the living room, the old lady and Shui Qingyan were chatting happily. Although Shui Qingyan was not her precious grandson's girlfriend, such a beautiful girl was not bad to be her grandson's girlfriend. Although Shui Qingyan was used to seeing the elders, she could not bear the old lady's chatting. After Qin Ran came downstairs, Shui Qingyan stood up in a hurry and said, Grandma, it's late. I should go back. I won't disturb you anymore. I'll visit you another day. The old lady did not urge her to stay. She said with a smile, Okay. Be careful on your way back. Qin Ran walked Shui Qingyan out of the old foreign-style house and saw her get in the car. When they had dinner, they had exchanged phone numbers. Therefore, she asked Shui Qingyan to tell her when she arrived. After returning to the living room, the old lady asked Qin Ran about what happened tonight. Qin Ran made up an excuse to deceive the old lady. Then she sent the old lady upstairs to rest. When Qin Sheng woke up the next day, it was already past 8 o'clock. He did not have such a splitting headache. Last night, he was drunk. When he came out of the shower, Qin Ran and the old lady had already woken up. Qin Ran said angrily, Finally, you're awake. Do you know you were drunk last night? Qin Sheng was a little confused. I didn't drink much. How could I be drunk? If Zhu Jiao had been drunk, the old lady might have beaten him up. However, it was Qin Sheng. The old lady felt a little sorry for him. Sheng drink less in the future. Your health is the most important. If it weren't for your two sisters, you wouldn't even know how to come back. Qin Ran apologized obediently and comforted the old lady for a while. Then the old lady stopped nagging. After breakfast, Qin Sheng replied to Shui Qingyan's message and asked her what had happened last night. Of course, Shui Qingyan did not say anything. She could not tell Qin Sheng that he had told her a long story. After hanging up the phone, Qin Ran walked into the bedroom and said, Qingyan told me that you asked Brother Zheng to keep an eye on a man. What happened? Qin Sheng said truthfully, Yes. He is the one who betrayed me in Huangmei town, got Qingyang killed, and almost got me killed. He did not hide anything at all. Qin Ran hesitated for a while and said, You're not the same Qin Sheng as before. When you need to do something, you can ask others to do it. Don't do it yourself. Otherwise, it will be very troublesome. Qin Sheng nodded silently and said, Sister, I know. Qin Ran believed that Qin Sheng could handle it properly. She patted Qin Sheng's shoulder and said, Okay, it's time for us to go. After visiting these families, there will be nothing else to do. Hearing this, Qin Sheng could not help feeling a little excited. In this way, he could go to Ningbo. Chapter 423. Chapter 422. Introduction. A couple of days today was the 5th day of the Lunar New Year. If Lao Chong still did not show up, Qin Sheng would have to put up a missing person notice. He was afraid that this uncle had died in some corner of the motherland, and no one would clean up his body. It was not impossible. Other people would go to the bustling metropolis or go on vacation abroad. However, Old Chong just liked to go to those deep mountains and forests to look for those hermit experts. If he was interested, he might even exchange a few moves with them. If he met a tough character, no one would know if something really happened. After Qin Sheng picked up the phone, he said excitedly, Lao Chong, you finally came back to life. I almost burned some Jaws paper for you. Qin Ran, who was talking on the phone next to him, was shocked. What was he talking about during the Lunar New Year? At this time, Lao Chong, who was living happily in some corner of the motherland, said with a smile, From your tone, you seem to be in a good mood recently. I'm relieved. What are you talking about? Do I have to cry for you for a while? Qingsheng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Then he asked, "Tell me quickly, where are you now?" "Shanghai," Lao Chong said honestly. He had just arrived in Shanghai last night. Qin Sheng was shocked. "Holy sh*t. Lao Chong, you're in Shanghai. Really? Do you know where I am?" Lao Chong said disapprovingly. "Of course I know. You're also in Shanghai. I came to Shanghai specially to look for you. Otherwise, why would I be in Shanghai?" Qin Sheng was confused. He frowned and said, "How did you know I was in Shanghai?" Lao Chong explained honestly. "After I came back from other places, I called Hao Lei to ask about your news. I thought you were still uncontactable, so I had to go to Tsingtao in person. It did not occur to me that you had appeared before the Lunar New Year, so I directly came to Shanghai to look for you." Qin Sheng really admired Lao Chong. This man was really meticulous. If he had known that Lao Chong had appeared, he would have called him directly, without hesitation. Unexpectedly, Lao Chong was so good that he did not call Qin Sheng until he arrived in Shanghai. Qin Sheng could not help but say, "You are awesome." Chong Baji smiled gently. Chong Baji smiled faintly and said, "Hao Lei told me some things. I told him not to inform you first and to contact you when I arrive. We'll talk about the details when we meet. Give me your address and I'll go to you right away." "Wait a minute." Qin Sheng could not wait to turn around and ask his sister where they were going. After getting the answer, he quickly told Qin Sheng. After that, they hung up the phone. Qin Ran had already hung up the phone. Just now, she was greeting the senior and telling him that they would arrive in half an hour. At this time, Qin Ran asked, "Who is it? Why are you making such a fuss?" Since he was going to see Lao Chong soon, Qin Sheng was in a good mood, just like the sunshine today. As for this man who had gone through ups and downs with him and was like a teacher and a friend to him, Qin Sheng respected him from the bottom of his heart. Lao Chong was one of the few people whom he could never let down. "A good teacher and helpful friend who saved my life several times," Qin Sheng said. Qin Ran laughed and said, "Isn't it Chong Baji?" Qin Sheng was a little surprised as he said, "Sister, you know about it?" Qin Ran said playfully, "How can I not know who is around you? How about I tell you something about Su Qin? After all, someone was drunk because of her last night." Qin Sheng looked embarrassed. Thinking of what happened last night, he could only let out a long sigh and did not continue this topic. "As for the people around you that my sister mentioned, how could I not know?" Of course, Qin Sheng understood what she meant. After all, the Qin family had been secretly protecting him since he appeared in Xi'an. In the past 2 years, he only had a few friends around him. Thinking of these friends, Qin Sheng was lost in thought. He wondered if Xia Ding and Han Bing were in Shanghai during the Spring Festival. Thinking of Han Bing, Qin Sheng remembered that the place they were going to this morning was Thompson Golf Villa. He was familiar with this place. Han Guoping used to live here. Unfortunately, Han Bing had sold that villa. "We went back to Shanghai. Things were still the same, but people had changed." Similar to yesterday, Qin Ran took Qin Sheng to visit her father's friends politely with gifts in hand. Qin Ran was no stranger to these so-called big shots. After all, she met them several times every year. For some special relationships, Qin Ran often called to greet them. This year was different. She tried to introduce Qin Sheng to these elders. After visiting the two families, Qin Ran was already used to it. Moreover, Qin Chang'an had informed them in advance. These days, Qin Sheng was already used to it. He was used to them looking at him with strange eyes. He was used to them asking all kinds of questions, especially the more personal questions, such as whether he had a girlfriend or not. Qin Sheng answered them honestly. After all, sometimes he would meet these elders' children, especially their daughters. These elders would intentionally or unintentionally try to matchmake them. Qin Sheng was really scared. There was only one family in the morning. After all, it was a big shot in Shanghai's financial circle and also a major shareholder of Chang Group. Its background was even more unfathomable. Originally, when they arrived in Shanghai, they would first visit this family. However, this elder just returned to Shanghai yesterday, so they changed it to today. This elder had 2 daughters and a son. The son and the daughter had already got married. The younger daughter just came back from a foreign investment bank before the spring festival. She was about the same age as Qin Sheng. She was also quite beautiful. As for her education and temperament, it was needless to say. Although Qin Sheng clearly told them that he had a girlfriend, it seemed that the two elders did not give up. They took the initiative to let the two kids keep in touch. Naturally, Qin Sheng had to give them face. When Lao Chong arrived at the Thompson Golf Villa, Qin Sheng stood up and said that he was going to meet a friend. The two elders asked the younger daughter to accompany Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng was really helpless. Originally, this beauty was going to drive Qin Sheng out. Qin Sheng said that his friend was already waiting at the gate of the community. So they walked side by side. On the way out, Qin Sheng did not say anything. This beauty took the initiative to ease the atmosphere and said, "Is your girlfriend very beautiful?" Her name was Wu Han. She went abroad to study after graduating from high school. After graduating from Harvard Business School, she directly entered Goldman Sachs. With her father's power, Goldman Sachs was naturally willing to accept such a fair, rich, and beautiful woman. However, she was not a vase. She had been responsible for several medium-sized projects. Although her father was one of them, there was no doubt about her ability. Otherwise, the company would not have such a high evaluation of her. However, her life abroad was too busy. It was the same in the investment bank. Every day, except for rest, she had to work, which made her quite tired. Her parents were old. Her elder brother and sister were married. Moreover, she had reached the age and did not want to settle down abroad. So she resigned before the New Year's Eve. Wu Han was indeed beautiful, but she was not as beautiful as Lin Su. However, Qin Sheng still said politely, "Not as beautiful as you. Are you telling the truth?" Although his words made Wu Han very happy, she felt that this man was different from those rich playboys she had met before. So she was more or less interested in him. Moreover, they would have many chances to meet each other in the future. Qin Sheng smiled awkwardly and said, "I won't tell you about this. You are so cunning." Wu Han stared at Qin Sheng and said. Qin Sheng smiled and did not deny it. The weather was so good that people were a little lazy. Wu Han raised her hands and stretched herself. It was a pity that her figure was not good enough. Otherwise, her posture would make any man have a nosebleed. She sighed and said, "Alas, after I came back, my parents arranged many blind dates for me. I am really tired. It is not good for me to say anything. After all, I can understand them. So don't mind what they say. Just ignore them. In fact, I can totally refuse to accompany you out. However, after the New Year's Eve, I will go to Beijing to work for the Qin family. It is not bad for me to have more contact with you, my future boss." Hearing Wu Han's frank explanation, Qin Sheng had a good impression of her in an instant. He was no longer as taciturn as before. He replied, "Isn't it the same for parents? However, why do you want to go to Beijing? Isn't it better to stay in Shanghai? Besides, I'm not your future boss. I don't even know which way the company gate is facing." Wu Han stared at Qin Sheng in surprise. Obviously, she did not believe what Qin Sheng had said. Qin Sheng said thoughtfully, "I am not lying to you this time. Maybe I don't know as well as you do. I guess you also know something. I have been back in the Qin family for only 2 months, so these things are still far away from me." Wu Han nodded quietly and said, "I know a little, but I am not clear about it. I have been keeping in touch with Sister Anran. I also know that Uncle Qin only has one daughter. So when my parents told me, I wondered when Uncle Qin had another son. Of course, I also guessed it." Qin Sheng laughed and said, "He is not an illegitimate child. He is definitely the same father and mother. I can guarantee it." He thought this beauty was quite interesting. Wu Han was also amused by Qin Sheng's answer. She joked, "Does it mean that boys are raised poor and girls are raised rich?" Qin Sheng shrugged and said, "You can understand it in this way. Anyway, I don't understand it." At this time, they had arrived at the gate of the community. Qin Sheng had already seen Lao Chong, whom he was very familiar with, standing by the roadside from a distance. Probably no one would expect this ordinary-looking man to be so capable. Lao Chong also saw Qin Sheng. Of course, he also saw Wu Han, who had accompanied Qin Sheng out. He frowned slightly and guessed this beauty's identity. Could she be Qin Sheng's new girlfriend? Qin Sheng said casually, "She is my friend." Of course, Wu Han knew what Qin Sheng meant. She smiled happily and said, "I could just walk around nearby, but we have to go back before lunch. How long will it take you?" Qin Sheng said, "I will call you later." Facing such a smart and sensible woman, Qin Sheng liked her more. If Wu Han went to Beijing in the future, they could become friends and he could ask her some questions about business. At this time, Chang Baji had already walked toward Qin Sheng and Wu Han. Wu Han smiled and nodded at Chang Baji, who was not far away. After that, she took the initiative to leave. They had not seen each other for more than 2 months. Every time they parted, it was almost a life or death parting. This time, not only Qin Sheng was in danger, but even Lao Chong had almost lost his life. Consequently, it was really emotional to see them here. Moreover, so many things had happened during this period. Chapter 4:24. Who was he? For Qin Sheng and Lao Chong, it was lucky that they could see each other again. That night in Huangmei Town was the most dangerous one for them in recent years, except for the time when Qin Sheng was on Mount Jiahua. Without Zhuang Zhou and Nangong, Qin Sheng would have died that night. If Mr. Chu had not chosen to stop because he knew that he would suffer a great loss, Lao Chong might have stayed in Huangmei Town that night. After all, Qin Sheng was the star of that night, and Lao Chong was not important. Even so, they still paid a heavy price, which was Gu Qingyang. Seeing each other again after more than 2 months, Qin Sheng and Chang Baji both sighed with emotion. After Chang Baji came back from the northeast, he called Hao Lei first to ask about Qin Sheng. After all, Qin Sheng had gone to Tsingtao and completely lost contact with him, which made Chang Baji quite worried. If there was still no news about Qin Sheng, he would go to Tsingtao to find him in person. Fortunately, Qin Sheng was safe and sound. However, many things that Hao Lei said made Chang Baji confused. For example, Qin Sheng had found his family members. 2 big men hugging each other at the gate of this high-end villa community would make people think too much. Chang Baji was a straight man with a clear sexual orientation. He was not used to Qin Sheng's behavior more or less. Consequently, Chang Baji pushed Qin Sheng away and said, "That's enough. Don't affect the social atmosphere in broad daylight." Qin Sheng laughed and said, "Lao Chong, when did you become so pretentious? No matter what others think, as long as we are happy. Besides, we haven't seen each other for more than 2 months. Aren't you excited at all?" Chang Baji said disapprovingly, "I haven't seen you in half a year. I didn't see you so excited last time." However, judging from Qin Sheng's state, he was not as depressed as he had been when he left Huangmei Town. Obviously, many good things had happened recently. However, at this time, Lao Chong had already come to his senses. Looking at the back of Wu Han, who had already gone far away, he said, "Tell me honestly, who is that beauty? Is she your new girlfriend? You are a bit too fast to get rid of the old. Sorry to Lin Su." Qin Sheng punched Lao Chang's chest and said, "Don't make a fool of me. She is the daughter of the senior I visited today. She happened to send me out. All right, let's stop teasing each other and find a place to talk." Lao Chong was just joking. He did not believe that Qin Sheng would let Lin Su go just like that. Lin Su was much more beautiful than that beauty just now. The two of them casually found a coffee shop nearby. After sitting down, they talked about what had happened recently. Qin Sheng simply said a few words and did not explain in detail. Compared to the things that had happened to Qin Sheng during this period of time, Chang Baji's life was relatively simple. He recuperated from his injuries and learned martial arts. The battle in the Huangmei Town had indeed injured him badly. However, at the same time, he had learned that there was always a mountain beyond a mountain and a sky beyond a sky. He could not blame others for his inferiority. Consequently, Lao Chong took advantage of this period of time to continue looking for masters. He was lucky enough to find an internal martial art expert in the Changbai Mountain. The expert had some connections with his teacher. Therefore, he had basically stayed there for more than 2 months. You're saying that they've been protecting you in secret all this time? They know everything that happened to you in the past 2 years, including the grudges between you and Yin Chaozong. In other words, the 2 times when you were lucky in Mount Jihua and the Huangmei town were just because they helped you, right? After Chang Baji heard that, he said in shock. This was really beyond his imagination. It was a little unimaginable. Qin Sheng said slowly, "At the beginning, I did not believe it either. However, this is the truth. There are too many things. For example, what happened in Xiamen and Chowda were all arranged by them. Don't you think it's a little ridiculous?" Chang Baji said thoughtfully, "In that case, the Qin family is really not simple. This was not something that an ordinary family could do. They actually could not admit it for 2 years. At the same time, they watched Qin Sheng being bullied by people from all walks of life. This made Chang Baji involuntarily think of old Master Qin. There were some things that Qin Sheng could not tell Chang Baji, such as who his father was, who his uncle was, and what was the current status of his youngest uncle in Shanghai. Qin Sheng said honestly, "It is indeed not simple. However, for me, there are advantages and disadvantages. In general, the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. I will not refuse it. Only with this identity can I take revenge faster and do more things." Chang Baji nodded silently and said, "You are right. This originally belongs to you, and it is the life that you should have. Although God played a joke on you, no matter what, you have returned to the right track." What Chang Baji said made sense. No matter what, the final result would be the same. Chang Baji said with concern, "Now that you are back, you can face Yin Chaozong and the others directly. In that case, when do you plan to take revenge?" Chang Baji asked with concern. Now he finally understood why his master had asked him to follow Qin Sheng. Obviously, his master knew a lot of things that he did not know. Fortunately, he had persisted and did not give up on Qin Sheng. Qin Sheng sneered and said, "It has already started." Under Chang Baji's astonished gaze, Qin Sheng told Chang Baji about what had happened yesterday, including the fact that he had sent someone to follow Gu Xiaobo secretly. After hearing the name, Gu Xiaobo, Chang Baji's expression changed instantly, and there was obvious killing intent in his eyes. Chang Baji sneered and said, "I have already informed Senior Brother about Gu Xiaobo's matter before the new year. Senior Brother said that I can deal with him. If I am not willing to do it, he will personally clean up the sect, so he will not be able to jump around for long." He had no need to be polite to this kind of scum. Qin Sheng took a sip of coffee and asked, "Then what are you going to do? This kind of scum will only harm more people if he is kept alive. So he has no better choice but to die." Chang Baji said slowly, "However, I will not let him die so easily." Obviously, Chang Baji already had an idea. So Qin Sheng said, "Then we are not in a hurry. Let him jump around for a few more days. Since you are back, come with me to the Lin family tomorrow. Let's meet them first." Chang Baji said with interest, "That should be interesting." It was almost time. Qin Sheng had to go back, otherwise he would leave a bad impression on that senior. But what should he do with Lao Chong? He could not leave him here alone. So Qin Sheng thought of Xia Ding, wondering if he was in Shanghai. He had planned to meet him after coming back from Ningbo. Now Lao Chong suddenly came to Shanghai. Qin Sheng had to change his plan. Last time when he was in Beijing, Qin Sheng had already asked Chao Yufeng for Xia Ding's and Lao Si's phone numbers. At this time, he directly dialed Xia Ding's phone number. After a while, the phone was connected. "Who is it?" Xia Ding was still cynical and asked casually. At this time, he was annoyed at home because he was treated the same as Qin Sheng. Today, several beautiful women came to his home, all of whom were the daughters of his uncles. His mother was so happy that she almost chose a wife for him. However, Xia Ding did not like these women. He had seen many of them, so he found them boring. Qin Sheng said, half-jokingly, "Damn you." Hearing this, Xia Ding, who was annoyed, instantly became furious. Damn it, who dared to tease him like this? But then Xia Ding came to his senses because he recognized this familiar voice. He immediately said in surprise, "What the F***CK? Big brother, you are finally willing to contact me. If you didn't contact me, I would have to rush to Beijing to find you." Qin Sheng was also a little surprised as he said, "Well, it seems that you have heard it from Lao Air. But you are not angry that I didn't call you. Good, good, your temper has improved." Xia Ding said unconcernedly. Who are we? I guess you must be busy. To be honest, I have no time to talk to you. Tell me, what can I do for you? You call me suddenly, definitely not to talk about the old days. This is my intuition. Qin Sheng asked casually. Where are you now? Xia Ding sighed and said, Shanghai. This year, my whole family is in Shanghai for the new year. Don't mention it. I'm so annoyed. When will you come to Shanghai to play with me? Or should I take Lao Si to Beijing to find you and Lao Air? Qin Sheng said unhurriedly. I am in Shanghai now. Xia Ding did not believe him and said disdainfully, Don't brag. I know what you have done. Do you dare to go back to Shanghai? Qin Sheng did not bother to explain to him. He said seriously, I don't want to talk nonsense with you. Whether you believe it or not, I am in Shanghai. I am with Lao Chong now. He has just arrived in Shanghai. I will give you a task. I have something to do now. You stay with Lao Chong. I will go to you after I finish my work. What the F***CK, really? Xia Ding still did not believe it. What the F***CK? If Qin Sheng was really in Shanghai, he had to inform Beauty Han as soon as possible. After all, she had invited him to dinner many times. Qin Sheng was speechless. When did you become so wishy-washy? Lao Chong will call you later. Keep in touch. Bye. While Xia Ding was still confused, Qin Sheng had already hung up. Xia Ding had no choice but to mumble, Okay. You're my big brother. I will believe you. After Qin Sheng hung up the phone, he stood up and said goodbye to Lao Chong. He also explained to Lao Chong what had happened. Lao Chong did not care about these trifles at all. He smiled and said that he would drink a few cups in the evening. After Qin Sheng went out, he called Wu Han. Wu Han said that she was already on her way back. When Qin Sheng returned to the gate of the community, Wu Han had been waiting there. In fact, she did not go far. She was reading in a nearby bookstore, waiting for Qin Sheng's call. Wu Han smiled and said, Are you done? Qin Sheng said with embarrassment, Sorry to keep you waiting. Wu Han shrugged and said, I am fine. I don't want to be questioned by my parents at home. When they went back to the villa, talking and laughing, Wu Han's parents were very happy. They said with a smile, I was about to call you. Where have you been? Wu Han explained casually in case that Qin Sheng would be exposed. Anyway, she had been used to treat her parents this way. After lunch, Qin Sheng and Qin Ran took their leave. It could be seen that Wu Han's parents were quite satisfied with Qin Sheng. After all, Qin Sheng was Qin Chang'an's son. If this marriage went through, the relationship between the two families would be closer. It was a pity that they could not get what they wanted. Not to mention that Qin Sheng already had a girlfriend. Even if he did not have a girlfriend, there was still Song Ruyu, who had been betrothed to him before he was born. How could they compare with the Song family? In the afternoon, they went to two more families. In the end, they went to the Shishan Golf Club. When they finished, it was already 8 o'clock. On the way, Xia Ding called and asked if he would come over for dinner. Qin Sheng said that it was not necessary. Originally, they could have finished early. Unexpectedly, that elder insisted on drinking with Qin Sheng. Together with his son and son-in-law, Qin Sheng was forced to drink half a liter of liquor. Finally, it was over. Then Qin Sheng went to number 1 Zhongliang Ocean View. Qin Ran saw him off and then left. She told Qin Sheng to come back early and drink less. Otherwise, his grandmother would worry about him again. When Qin Sheng walked to the door of Xia Ding's house, before he rang the doorbell, the door had been opened from inside. Qin Sheng, who was dizzy, did not see clearly who it was. A charming and beautiful woman directly hugged Qin Sheng and gave him a kiss at the same time. Chapter 425. Salute to the past. In the future, Xia Ding usually lived in number 1 Zhongliang Ocean View. The mansion by the Pudong River could be described as an inch of gold. Xia Ding's father bought this house when the market opened. At that time, this house was the king of Zhongliang Ocean View. The house he bought was nearly 400 square meters. Of course, the starting price was 40 million. It had to be said that the Xia family was quite rich. However, the real riverside mansions in the whole Lujiazui were Building A and Building D of Thompson First Class and Tianyue House of Zhongliang Ocean View. The former was worth more than 100 million yuan, so the latter was quite a bargain. After Xia Ding graduated successfully and started working, his father gave this house to Xia Ding. However, Xia Ding's parents seldom came here. If they were in Shanghai, they would usually live in the Jujiantang Villa in Century Park, which was not far from here, but very close to Thompson Golf Club. That was why Xia Ding quickly picked up Chang Baji at noon. Qin Sheng came here for the first time after he returned to Shanghai 2 years ago. At that time, the four of them sat on the balcony and looked at the night view of the Bund. The feeling of drinking and bragging was really great. At that time, Qin Sheng sighed that it was really good to be rich. He would definitely buy such a mansion when he was rich in the future. At that time, it was just a dream for him. Now, these dreams did not need to be realized. Not to mention whether the Qin family had a mansion in Shanghai. Just the courtyard house in Beijing was already something that many people could only dream of. Qin Sheng did not know whether this was good or bad. He really needed to settle down, or he would lose himself sooner or later. After all, those things that he had dreamed of were just at his fingertips now. However, what Qin Sheng looked forward to the most was the house that he bought with Lin Su's money when he was in Hangzhou. Unfortunately, he had already left Hangzhou in embarrassment before he handed over the house. Qin Sheng had been to Xia Ding's mansion too many times when he was in Shanghai, so he could not be more familiar with it. He found the door with ease. However, before he rang the doorbell, the door was open from the inside. Then a woman full of fragrance rushed out. Before he could see clearly who it was, she rushed into his arms and gave him a sweet kiss. This series of moves had caught Qin Sheng off guard. Qin Sheng really did not see clearly who it was. He drank too much last night and was forced to drink half a liter of liquor by the elder with his son and son-in-law in the evening. He was really a little dizzy now. Qin Sheng subconsciously thought that this could not be Xia Ding cross-dressing. Since when did this guy have such a strong taste? Thinking of this, Qin Sheng was so scared that he hurriedly pushed away the beauty in his arms. Although the beauty's fragrant lips were indeed very charming, if it was really Xia Ding, Qin Sheng might not be able to eat for a few days. After Qin Sheng pushed away the beauty in his arms, before he had time to see who it was, he saw Xia Ding walking out of the room. Xia Ding was still so cynical, with an evil and awe-inspiring smile on his face. This made Qin Sheng feel relieved. Fortunately, it was not Xia Ding in disguise. Only then did Qin Sheng lower his head, only to see a beautiful woman with red eyes who was about to cry. Qin Sheng exclaimed, "Han Bing, why are you here?" That's right. The beauty who took the initiative to throw herself into his arms and kiss him was Han Bing. Other than Han Bing, there was no one else. Qin Sheng did not have such great charm. If Xia Ding did not tell me that you were in Shanghai, you did not plan to contact me, right? Han Bing stared at Qin Sheng and asked. She was really tortured by Qin Sheng. In the past, when she was in Shanghai, he went to Hangzhou after disappearing for half a year. She finally made up her mind to go to Hangzhou, but who knew that Qin Sheng disappeared again not long after? Originally, when she saw Qin Sheng again, she, who was full of resentment, wanted to argue with Qin Sheng. But the moment she saw Qin Sheng, she instantly lost all her courage. Only those endless thoughts were left. That was why she impulsively hugged Qin Sheng and gave him a kiss. But at this time, she had already come back to her senses. Qin Sheng did not know how to respond for a while. He said awkwardly, Han Bing, listen to my explanation. I just arrived in Shanghai and did not have time to contact you. I thought that I would look for you after finishing my work. If Lao Chang did not come, I would not have called Xia Ding. Besides, I did not know whether you were in Shanghai or Hangzhou. Han Bing was not fooled by Qin Sheng. She snorted and said, This is your reason? I have been in Shanghai for so many years. If I did not celebrate the New Year in Shanghai, where would I celebrate the New Year? When my father passed away, you promised him that you would take care of me. But how did you take care of me? You either disappeared or disappeared. Since my father passed away, how many days have you been with me? Do you know how lonely I was during the New Year? As she spoke, Han Bing, who was standing at the door, cried out of grievance. This made Qin Sheng somewhat at a loss. Xia Ding and Chang Baji, who were in the room, shrugged their shoulders. The look in their eyes told Qin Sheng that this was his problem and they could not do anything about it. However, what Han Bing said was not wrong. Qin Sheng did feel a little sorry for her. When Han Guoping passed away, Qin Sheng did promise the middle-aged man to take care of his daughter, the only one he was worried about. Qin Sheng should have kept his promise. However, in the past 2 years, Qin Sheng's life was a mess. He could not even take care of himself. How could he take care of Han Bing? When Han Bing cried, Qin Sheng did not know what to do. He quickly hugged Han Bing and comforted her. I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I should not have left without a reason. I should have contacted you as soon as I came back. I promise that I will not disappear again. I promise that you can find me at any time. How about it? Madam, can you not cry? Your makeup is ruined. You don't look pretty. After hearing this, Han Bing stopped crying. She said with tears in her eyes, Are you sure that you are not lying to me? Qin Sheng did not dare to say anything. He nodded without hesitation. I am definitely not lying to you. If I am lying to you, let me. Before Qin Sheng could say anything, Han Bing had already covered his mouth. She pouted and said, I believe you. After she finished speaking, Han Bing was already beaming with joy. Then, she pulled Qin Sheng and walked inside. At the same time, she gave Xia Ding and Chang Baji a look. Why did Qin Sheng feel that this woman changed her face too quickly? She cried and laughed at the drop of a hat. Could it be that she was tricked? It seemed that Han Bing might really do that. After all, this woman was a little demon. So be it. Qin Sheng simply did not think about it. Anyway, he owed her. There was no right or wrong to suffer a loss once. In the living room, the table was already filled with all kinds of delicious food. Of course, there was the most indispensable wine. There were red wine, white wine, cocktails, and beer. Qin Sheng was really shocked when he saw it. What are you doing? Qin Sheng was a little scared. Xia Ding said disapprovingly, Boss, do you know how many beautiful women I gave up to accompany you? If I don't get you drunk tonight, I will lose a lot. Lao Chang has already said that we must drink together. By the way, I forgot to tell you one thing. Lao Si is on his way. What do you think he is going to do? Hearing that Lao Si was coming, Qin Sheng was shocked and said, Damn, are you kidding me? Lao Si is coming for Nanjing? Xia Ding smiled and explained, Not necessarily. This guy has been in Shanghai since yesterday. It's time for him to pay his New Year's greetings and walk around. He just finished his dinner and is on his way here. Qin Sheng let out a long sigh of relief. Fortunately, otherwise he did not know how to face Lao Si. But no matter what, the 3 brothers in the dormitory were definitely not a problem. After he sat down, Qin Sheng picked up the wine glass and was about to give up. He had drunk too much wine recently. He could only say, I'll definitely drink. But I have to warn you first. You can't get me drunk today. I have just returned to Shanghai and met my grandmother. I have been living there these few days. I drank too much last night. The old lady was worried and kept waiting for me. I must not go back drunk tonight. We will have plenty of opportunities in the future. I will drink with you next time. Han Bing and Chang Baji did not have any objection. Xia Ding could understand them more or less. He had heard some things about Qin Sheng from Chang Baji, so he agreed and poured wine for everyone. First of all, let's celebrate Lao Da's return to Shanghai. Second, let's celebrate our reunion again. Finally, let's congratulate Lao Da's family reunion. I hope Lao Da's luck will turn for the better, and you'll be awesome from now on. Qin Sheng did not talk nonsense. He directly raised his head and drank the wine. Everything was in the wine. In the future, no matter how far Qin Sheng could go with his new identity, he would not forget these brothers and friends who had helped him. Therefore, when the second glass of wine was filled, Qin Sheng looked at Chang Baji and said somewhat self-deprecatingly and sadly, This glass of wine is only for Gu Qingyang. Except for Chang Baji, Xia Ding, and Han Bing did not know who Gu Qingyang was. They looked at each other, but Qin Sheng had already stood up, walked to the balcony, and directly poured the wine on the ground. The bright moon was in the sky, and the night scene was bright. Unfortunately, Gu Qingyang, who had died for Qin Sheng, could not see it anymore. Was it worth it? Many people would probably ask the same question. However, some things are not worth evaluating, but should they be done or not? Qin Sheng muttered to himself, Qingyang, I'll drink to you first. On the day when I take revenge, I'll drink with you until I'm drunk. Chang Baji, who was in the living room, did not explain. He did not pour the wine on the ground, either. He just raised his head and drank it again. In the seemingly bright and beautiful life, there were a lot of dirty and dark things that people did not know about. However, some people were suitable to live under the sun, while others needed to be familiar with the rules of the game in the dark. Xia Ding and Han Bing did not ask further. From Qin Sheng's action, they could tell that the man named Gu Qingyang was already dead. Based on their understanding of some things about Qin Sheng, they could roughly guess it. When Qin Sheng came back and filled the third glass, waiting for someone to bring it up, the sound of the door guard rang. Xia Ding picked up the glass that had been put down and walked to the door quickly. Big brother, the third glass of wine is not in a hurry. Lao Si is here. However, Qin Sheng squinted and drank by himself. He said, "This third glass of wine, to the past, to the future, to me, and to you." Chapter 426. Chapter 426. Introduction here, I come during this time. Qin Sheng, who had changed his identity, was reintegrating into the new life, recontacting these former friends, and began to accept new friends. Of course, this state needed to be adjusted slowly. After drinking the third glass of wine, Qin Sheng also got up and walked to the door, standing side by side with Xia Ding, waiting for Lao Si, who had not seen him for a long time. A few minutes later, they finally saw Yu Kefi, who smelled of alcohol but was in high spirits, coming out of the elevator. Yu Kefi would come to Shanghai for a few days every New Year. Just as Qin Sheng and Qin Rand came to Shanghai on behalf of Qin Chang'an to pay New Year's greetings, Yu Kefi naturally came to Shanghai on behalf of the old man. After all, the Yangtze River Delta was a whole. Yu Kefi knew that Xia Ding was in Shanghai during the New Year. He wanted to see Xia Ding after finishing his work. After all, he had plenty of time. But he did not expect that Xia Ding would call in the afternoon and say that Qin Sheng was also in Shanghai. Yu Kefi and Xia Ding both learned from Chao Yufeng that Qin Sheng had come back. However, everyone was busy during the Spring Festival, so they did not have time to contact him. Moreover, they were somewhat resentful towards Qin Sheng. After all, Qin Sheng did not contact them when he came back. They had planned to go to Beijing after the New Year, and then the four brothers would get together. But they did not expect that Qin Sheng would come to Shanghai first. So Yu Kefi directly postponed the second activity in the evening. After the first activity, he rushed over. Xia Ding greeted him and muttered, "Damn, how much did you drink? I guess you have reached your limit." "Third brother, don't worry. It's not a problem to drink with you," Yu Kefi said disapprovingly. It had been several years since he graduated. He did not take the postgraduate examination because he wanted to integrate into the family business as soon as possible. So compared with others, Yu Kefi had changed the most. Xia Ding disdainfully said, "Will you die if you don't brag? We are basically equal." Yu Kefi ignored Xia Ding and looked at Qin Sheng, who looked calm. Yu Kefi had a lot of resentment to vent, but he heard about Qin Sheng's things from Xia Ding. There were 4 people in the dormitory. 3 of them came from families with powerful backgrounds, so their lives after graduation were very smooth. Only Qin Sheng's background was ordinary, so it had not been smooth. Therefore, there were some things that Yu Kefi could understand. If an ordinary person wanted to stand out in this society, if everything went well, it would take at least 5 or 10 years to really stand out. After all, the plot of becoming famous overnight only existed in movies and novels. "Boss, I don't want to say anything. I believe you have a lot of difficulties." Yu Kefi walked over slowly, gave Qin Sheng a big hug, and said affectionately, "Back in college, there were 4 people in the dormitory. Xia Ding was carefree and never thought too much about things. Chao Yufeng was quiet and focused on his studies. Qin Sheng was the only one who took care of him the most. If Yu Kefi scolded Qin Sheng a few words, Qin Sheng would feel more comfortable. The more Yu Kefi scolded Qin Sheng, the more Qin Sheng was not used to it. He did not know how to respond to Yu Kefi. After all, out of the 4 people in the dormitory, the other 3 were in constant contact. He was the only one who always disappeared. We are all men. Don't be like girls. Don't talk about these things. Let's go in and drink. All the words are in the wine. Xia Ding could not stand this kind of scene. He pulled Yu Kefi away and said with a smile. Yu Kefi also felt that it was too girly. He laughed and said, "Third brother is right. Today I am here to drink. Everything is in the wine." This was the second time that the three brothers met after graduation. Usually, they could get together in pairs. When they were in college, they didn't care. After all, they were together every day. Even on the eve of graduation, they still said to each other that they should get together more in the future. They could not be separated when they were walking. But even so, after entering society, thinking about it now, the number of times they met could be counted on one hand. Therefore, there were many things in life. Don't think about what will happen in the future. You should cherish the time when you are together. You should eat big bites of meat, drink big bowls of wine, laugh and scold without any taboo. You should be serious when you say goodbye. Sometimes, you really don't know when you will meet again. Xia Ding was close to Qin Sheng, so he knew Lao Chong and Han Bing's friends. Yu Kefi naturally didn't know him, but when he saw a beautiful woman present, he naturally guessed. He heard from Xia Ding that Qin Sheng was very popular with women. As for Chang Baji, Yu Kefi just felt that this person's temperament was very unique. He didn't see anything else. After all, he didn't have much contact with people like Chang Baji. Although he didn't know them, after Xia Ding helped introduce them, Yu Kefi also knew that they were friends of Qin Sheng and Xia Ding. Naturally, he didn't have so many taboos. The last contestant finally arrived. The drinking party officially began. As the host, Xia Ding took the initiative to raise his glass and said, "Lao Si, we have just raised 2 glasses. Let me say the 3rd glass. Although second brother is not here, I still hope that the 4 of us can get together more in the future. I also hope that the 4 of us will get better and better. In the future, we will all be awesome. I also hope that after a few decades, our relationship is still the same as when we were in college." After Xia Ding finished, he wanted to raise his glass. Yu Kefi interrupted and said, "Third brother, wait. Let me say a few words." Xia Ding smiled and said, "Go ahead." Yu Kefi looked at Qin Sheng and said, "Boss, I have nothing to say. The only thing I want to say is that you cannot suddenly disappear in the future. Contact your brothers more. As long as you call, unless there is something that you can't leave, I will definitely come to accompany you. Also, I know that you have experienced a lot of things, encountered a lot of setbacks, and also offended a lot of people. But you have to know that you have never been alone. I dare not say what about other people, but as long as you ask, Yu Kefi will definitely do it without hesitation." Xia Ding said half-jokingly, "Lao Si, you're being unreasonable again. We all know this in our hearts. You really don't need to say it out." Qin Sheng sighed and said, "Recently, I dare not say that I have been enlightened, but I still understand a lot of things. In the future, I will not be like that again. If something really happens, I will not be polite to you. Come on, let's not talk about it. Let's drink. Let's drink. Let's drink." The others echoed. After a glass of wine, everyone's mood was relaxed. They began to chat without any taboo. Han Bing was responsible for pouring wine for everyone. Chang Baji did not talk much. He would only answer when others asked him. Most of the time, it was Qin Sheng, the 3 brothers chatting, talking about the interesting things in college, talking about what they had experienced after graduation, thinking about their future life plans, and so on. Han Bing occasionally interjected a few words according to the atmosphere. Since Yu Kefi and Qin Sheng had already drunk, the drinking party was over at 11 o'clock. Chang Baji and Yu Kefi both stayed at Xia Ding's place. Anyway, there was no one else here. Qin Sheng had to go back. Maybe the old lady was still waiting for him. Han Bing was not far from here, so Qin Sheng took a taxi to send Han Bing back. On the way back, Han Bing held Qin Sheng's arm tightly and then leaned her head on Qin Sheng's shoulder. Looking out of the window, she was no longer so lonely. There was a faint sense of happiness in her heart, as well as the most lacking sense of security. Qin Sheng somewhat felt sorry for Han Bing. In the past, Han Bing had her father as a backer. But since Han Guoping's death, Han Bing was really helpless. After all, in the city of Shanghai, a apart from those friends, she had no real relatives. Of course, she could not go back to Gansu. So after seeing Han Bing again, Qin Sheng's attitude toward Han Bing was no longer the same as before. He felt somewhat guilty. After all, he really did not take good care of her in the past 2 years. Although he knew that Han Bing still liked him, so be it. After all, liking someone was a happy thing. Therefore, Qin Sheng did not refuse, but he still treated Han Bing as a sister and hoped that she could live a good life. "Haven't you seen Lin Su yet?" Han Bing asked without looking back. Her tone seemed casual, but he could hear the cautiousness behind it. Qin Sheng laughed and said, "Why do you suddenly ask this?" "I just want to know." Han Bing pouted and would never say why. How could Qin Sheng not know? He smiled and said, "Not yet." "Well, then I won this time," Han Bing said proudly, as if she had done better in the final exam than other students who were also liked by the teacher. Qin Sheng did not know whether to laugh or cry. Silly. It's better to be silly all the time. Anyway, no one cares about me now, and I don't care what others think of me, Han Bing said disapprovingly. Then she asked, after coming back this time, "Will you still go back to Hangzhou, or do you plan to develop in other places?" "I may go back to Hangzhou once, but I won't stay in Hangzhou. I may spend more time in Beijing and Shanghai in the future." Qin Sheng did not hide anything and told her the truth. Han Bing sighed and said, "It seems that my branch in Hangzhou, which has been open for less than half a year, will be closed so soon. Is it my fault?" Qin Sheng felt wronged. He did not want to be the scapegoat. Han Bing did not care about Qin Sheng. Who else could she blame but him? Han Bing soon arrived at the gate of the community. Qin Sheng watched her enter the community and then asked the driver to go to Sinan Road. Of course, he also promised Han Bing a lot of things. When he returned to the old foreign-style house on Sinan Road, the old lady had already gone to rest. Today, there were several groups of guests, who were all the old lady's relatives. Zhu Qingwen stayed here all the time and went back after 10 o'clock. The old lady originally wanted to see no one, but Zhu Qingwen felt that it was too cruel, so he persuaded the old lady. Of course, Qin Ran did not see anyone. She sat in the living room and waited for Qin Sheng to come back. After all, she had something to discuss with Qin Sheng. Moreover, when her small aunt was here just now, she had already informed her in advance. Of course, she also informed Qin Chang'an, who was far away in Beijing, in advance. After Qin Sheng came in, he asked carefully, "Is Grandma asleep?" Qin Ran stood up and poured a cup of sobering tea for Qin Sheng. She said, "Grandma didn't take a nap today, so she went to bed at 9:30. Drink some tea to sober up." Fortunately, she went to bed early. Otherwise, if she saw you reeking of alcohol, your image as a good grandson would be greatly damaged. Qin Sheng chuckled and did not say anything. Qin Ran squinted and asked, "Are you sure you want to go to Ningbo tomorrow?" Qin Sheng put down the teacup and raised his head. His eyes were like torches. He said yes. "I don't want to let her wait for so long. It may be torture for her every day." Moreover, Lao Chong has arrived in Shanghai, so I have nothing to worry about. Qin Ran nodded and asked again, "Well, are you sure you don't need me to go with you?" Qin Sheng held his sister's hand and smiled awkwardly. "Sister, you just need to stay in the base camp and make plans. I still need your help at that time." Qin Ran said honestly, "Well, then I won't go. After all, I still have something to do in Shanghai. But I will ask Nan Gong to go with you. She has arrived in Shanghai in the evening." Although she would not go, she needed to mobilize the resources of the Qin family. Qin Sheng did not refuse. It would be best if Nan Gong was there. So he nodded and said, "Okay, I will listen to your arrangement, sister." After going back to the room and washing up, Qin Sheng lay on the bed and could not fall asleep. After all, he was going to face the Lin family again. Thinking of how he had been treated when he went to the Lin family last time, how could he not be angry? Moreover, what the Lin family had done, the whole thing really made Qin Sheng look down on them, especially their attitude toward Lin Su. So he was looking forward to how he would be treated when he went to the Lin family this time. He hoped that the Lin family would not let him down. Chapter 427. Chapter 427. Walking out of the small building on the sixth day of the Lunar New Year, there were thousands of households and thousands of families. On this day, people paid special attention to the poor, abandoned rags, and served pancakes. However, for the Spring Festival, which was getting less and less festive, it was just a holiday. Today was the last day of the Spring Festival holiday. Most people were already on their way back, and the new year would officially begin tomorrow. Qin Sheng did not worry that his holiday balance would be zero. After all, he would go back to Beijing after the 15th day of the Lunar New Year. At that time, he would continue his studies at the School of Economics and Management of Tsinghua University. During the Spring Festival, he also received blessings from his classmates in the advanced study class. Most of them sent text messages. Only Han Su from Tianjin and Wei Li from Hangzhou called him. Han Su said a lot of things, regardless of whether Qin Sheng liked it or not. Wei Li was polite. He said a few words of blessing and hung up the phone sensibly. This time, Qin Sheng's attitude was not so cold. After all, one would not hit a smiling person. Moreover, he still needed this classmate's help in the future. Qin Sheng got up and accompanied his grandmother to walk in Fuxing Park as usual. There were more pedestrians and vehicles on the street than 2 days ago. Many people had already come back early. They might have come back early to visit their leaders, colleagues, or clients, etc. After all, the Spring Festival was the most important festival in China. When Qin Sheng and his grandmother came back, Qin Ran was already waiting for them in the dining room for breakfast. She was not in the style of daily life during the Spring Festival. Instead, she was in a very formal business suit, which made Qin Sheng feel a little strange. "Sister, why are you dressed so formally? Are you busy today?" Qin Sheng asked confusedly. Qin Ran explained casually, "I need to deal with something in the company in Shanghai, so I have to go to Lujiazui for a meeting in a while. I may not be able to see you off." "I'm a grown-up, not a little kid," Qin Sheng said disapprovingly. The old lady stared at Qin Sheng and said, "Sheng, your sister loves you, doesn't she? Go to Ningbo for a few days and come back early. I have a lot to talk to you about." When Qin Sheng was walking just now, he had already told his grandmother that he would go to Ningbo. Otherwise, his sudden disappearance would scare his grandmother. The old lady did not say anything. She just told Qin Sheng to be careful outside and to call home if anything happened. Qin Sheng immediately resumed his innocent look and said, "Grandma, I got it. I'll call you every day and come back as soon as I'm done with my work. I'll be with you in Shanghai before the 15th of the first lunar month." Qin Ran lowered her head and looked at the time as she said, "Hurry up and eat. Nangong is already on his way here. When he arrives in Ningbo, I could directly contact my friend." The Amber Heart series watch on her wrist was a birthday gift from the old man. Most of the time, Qin Ran only wore such a watch. Although she always disliked the old man, she loved him more than anyone else. Qin Sheng nodded and did not say anything more. He just lowered his head and filled his stomach. The old lady drank soy milk and looked at the pair of grandchildren with a smile. Her eyes almost narrowed into a line. If the eldest daughter was still alive now, she would be the happiest. Her husband was successful in his career, her children were filial, and her family supported her. She was not afraid of being bullied by anyone. Alas, the old lady sighed. Perhaps this blessing was too deep, and her daughter did not have this life to enjoy it. After breakfast, there were already 2 cars waiting for Qin Ran and Qin Sheng outside. The bodyguard named Brother Zheng had successfully completed his task and was called back by Qin Sheng to stay by his sister's side. After all, he already had the protection of 2 top masters, Lao Chong and Nangong. Nangong drove a modified Jeep Wrangler, which was really domineering. She was also dressed in punk-style clothes, looking valiant and formidable. This woman was really not as sexy and charming as she looked. Probably no one would think that she was a cold-blooded killer. Brother Zheng drove a Mercedes-Benz S of the company in Shanghai. After all, Qin Ran had attended formal business occasions these days. Neither of them asked the old lady to send them. Qin Sheng carried a bag and went out without much luggage. Seeing Nangong again, Qin Sheng was not as embarrassed as before. He already knew how to get along with her. Nangong greeted Qin Ran and still ignored Qin Sheng. After all, she still remembered what had happened at Yinchi Lake. Qin Sheng said shamelessly, "Sister Nangong, why don't you say Happy New Year to me?" Nangong was so angry that she wanted to lose her temper. However, Qin Sheng was so unscrupulous because Sister Ran Ran was here. She could only bear it and put on a fake smile. "Happy New Year." Qin Sheng took out a red envelope and handed it to Nangong. "Good. Come on, take the red envelope. This is a little gift from your brother." Nangong gritted her teeth and took the red envelope. She could not say no to money. However, she did not think that Qin Sheng did it out of kindness. He deliberately made fun of her. She snorted. "I thank you." Qin Ren did not know whether to laugh or cry. "All right, stop it. Let's get down to business. Yezi, take care of Qin Sheng when you arrive in Ningbo. Keep in touch with me. And Qin Sheng, don't always bully Yezi. I can't guarantee that she won't beat you. Sister, I am such a kind and honest person. How could I bully Yezi? Moreover, Yezi is a beauty. All beauties should be treated in the palm of my hand," Qin Sheng said with a smile. Qin Ran stared at Qin Sheng and said, "Don't be serious." Nangong replied very seriously, "Sister Ran Ran, please give in. I won't let anything happen to him. However, if he doesn't listen to my arrangement, I can't guarantee it. All right, you two happy enemies. Let's go back to Shanghai as soon as possible." Qin Ran smiled and shook her head. She had to go to the company for a meeting before 9:30. This time, she might have to stay in Shanghai for a long time. It was already busy in Beijing. It was said that the old man went to Mount Wutai yesterday. Although Qin Ran did not know what had happened, she could feel that a storm was coming. Otherwise, the old man would not go to Mount Wutai to disturb the first uncle. In fact, Qin Ran wanted to go to Ningbo with Qin Sheng. She also wanted to ask the elders of the Lin family face to face. How could the Lin family look down on the men of the Qin family? However, the things in Shanghai were more urgent. Even Wu Han, who would go to Beijing after the 15th of the first lunar month, was temporarily asked by Qin Ran to be an assistant in the company. After that, Qin Ran got in the car and left. She believed that Qin Sheng could handle the things in Ningbo well. Moreover, she had found a helper for Qin Sheng in Ningbo. Moreover, Small Ant was still prepared. A small Lin family was not enough to make the Qin family go to war. After Qin Ran left, Nangong was not so polite to Qin Sheng anymore. He said in a strange tone, "Young master, let's go." Qin Sheng was not in a hurry. He said, "Wait for a while. There is still a friend who hasn't come yet." "Who are you waiting for? Why are you so troublesome?" Nangong stared at Qin Sheng angrily. He knew that it would not be a good thing to go back to China. He was sent to Shanghai to protect Qin Sheng before he went to Beijing to visit the old master. If he had known this, he would have gone back a few days later. Qin Sheng did not respond. Anyway, he tried to talk to Nangong as little as possible, in case they could not talk to each other in a few words. At that time, if they had a fight, he really could not defeat this violent woman. After waiting for a few minutes, Lao Chong arrived by taxi. He saw Qin Sheng standing beside the Wrangler from afar. He was a little surprised that a woman was with him. Of course, Chong Baji did not know that this woman was one of the key figures who had saved Qin Sheng in Huang, Maytown last time. After Chong Baji arrived, Qin Sheng directly said, "Get in the car. Let's go." Nangong drove. After all, it was only a 2.5-hour drive. If they could not get along, they could change to another car. After getting in the car, Qin Sheng briefly introduced the identities of Nangong and Chong Baji. Nangong was not strange to Chong Baji. After seeing him, she knew what Qin Sheng meant. With this man following them, they would have more protection on this trip to Ningbo. After all, they did not know what they might experience. Chong Baji squinted. Although Nangong's fighting skills were excellent, she was after all a woman. Chong Baji was not optimistic about her. Qin Sheng knew what Lao Chong was thinking. He replied, "Lao Chong, don't look down on this woman. She is a complete tough woman. I'm not her match." "Oh," Chong Baji said thoughtfully. As soon as Qin Sheng finished his words, he regretted it. After hearing his words, Nangong suddenly stepped on the brake. Qin Sheng didn't know whether the car behind him was startled or not, but he was indeed startled and almost hit the front windshield. Qin Sheng stared at Nangong angrily. Nangong shrugged and said innocently, "Sorry, I was a little distracted just now." Qin Sheng was really angry. He could only make up his mind not to provoke this woman on the way. "I can't provoke her, but I can hide from her." On the way, the three of them did not talk much. Qin Sheng lowered his head to play with his phone and replied to messages. Chang Baji closed his eyes and rested. Nangong concentrated on driving. When the Jeep Wrangler got on the highway, Qin Sheng, who did not inform Lin Su in advance, sent her a short message. "Wife, I'm already on the way to Ningbo. Are you ready?" After sending the message, Qin Sheng closed his eyes and began to think about how to face the Lin family and how they would humiliate him this time. The moment he appeared in the Lin family, he had already told his former enemies that he, Huan San, was back. Then, how would Yin Chaozong, Chu Huanqi, Third Master Wu, and other people deal with him? Qin Sheng estimated that these people might not believe that he was so bold. After offending so many people, he actually dared to come back after he escaped with great difficulty. Was he really not afraid of death? Or did he not take them seriously? Qin Sheng did not know whether these people would reinvestigate him after they knew this news. Maybe no one would be willing to take a lot of trouble. After all, they had already known his details. He was just a little bit powerful. It was not possible that he could go against God in just 2 months. However, even if someone wanted to investigate him, it would be difficult for them to find any clues. Moreover, even if they found him, so what? At that time, it would be more interesting. Qin Sheng really wanted to know what they would look like at that moment. In the Lin family in Ningbo, when Lin Su saw this message, it was already an hour later. Because someone came to persuade her just now. This time, it was her best friend. Lin Su was not angry. Everyone's words were reasonable. But for her, her life was up to her. After reading the message, Lin Su smiled sincerely. She was not excited at all because it would happen sooner or later. However, in order to see Qin Sheng as soon as possible, Lin Su finally bowed to the Lin family and took the initiative to walk out of the small building where she had been under house arrest for 2 months. Chapter 428. Chapter 428. Chapter 428. Unable to wait in the living room of the main house of the Lin family. Everyone was shocked when they heard the news. After all, Lin Su had been stubborn for 2 months. Why did she suddenly give in? Could it be that Song, Chu, and Tan Jing's persuasion had worked? Lin Yu was even more confused. What was wrong with her sister? She had been stubborn for so long. Why did she give in? Could it be that something unpleasant happened between her and her brother-in-law in the past 2 days, and she made such a decision because she was sad? Little Chu, Jing, it's all thanks to you guys today. You really know what to say. If I had known, I would have invited you guys over earlier. Lin Chongding's hair had turned white from worry. He had been exhausted during this period of time. He had made such a choice under the pressure of his mother. His mother was so angry that she collapsed on the bed. This was unfilial. However, what could he do? The Lin family was already in such a state. As the head of the family, if he did not think of a solution, this big family would be destroyed in his hands. At that time, he would become the biggest joke in Ningbo. Song Chu and Tan Jing were both from Ningbo. They had to go back to Ningbo during the spring festival. After all, they were not married yet. Tan Jing was engaged and would probably get married during the May Day holiday. Song Chu and Tan Jing could be considered as one of Lin Su's best friends. However, their characters were somewhat different. Song Chu was vain and worshipped money. Therefore, he had never liked Qin Sheng. Naturally, he did not think highly of this relationship. Although Tan Jing thought that Yin Chaozong and Lin Su were a better match, she supported Lin Su's choice. After all, when it came to love, mutual consent was the most important thing. If the one she chose was not the one she liked, no matter how good her material life was, she would not be happy. Therefore, when they went to persuade Lin Su, it was basically Song Chu who did the talking. Tan Jing did not say anything. She admired Lin Su from the bottom of her heart. Nowadays, Not everyone could make such a choice for love, not to mention Lin Su, who was born in the Lin family. Uncle Lin, this is what we should do. We also hope that Su can live a happy life. Song Chu, who was good at talking and acting coquettishly, was more likable. In addition, she was beautiful, so naturally she was more popular. Therefore, she had not planned to get married yet. Although there were many boys chasing after her, none of them met her requirements. Both Song Chu and Tianjing were now working in Shanghai. If they stayed in such a city for a long time, they would more or less be affected, not to mention that they were both beauties with a good foundation. Originally, Tianjing was not satisfied with her boyfriend. After all, they were only from a middle-class family in Ningbo. They had to face the material conditions of buying a house in Shanghai, and so on. But after all, they had been dating since they were in university. Coupled with Lin Su's influence, Tianjing finally made up her mind to get engaged. No wonder Song Chu said that she and Lin Su were dumber than the other. In the end, they would still be defeated by reality. If you don't believe me, just wait and see. Anyway, I won't give myself to anyone easily. Lin Chongting and his wife were both there. Of course, their good-for-nothing son, Lin Zhe, was also there. He was interested in beautiful women like Song Chu and Tianjing, so he took the initiative to adjust the atmosphere. Lin Yu coldly watched these people's performance, feeling sad for her sister and her brother-in-law. Lin Chongting said to his son, Lin Zhe, called Jiahao and asked him to come over and have a good talk with Susa later. The man called Jiahao was the man he had chosen for Lin Su. The Chun family's influence in Ningbo was growing. In particular, Chun Jiahao's father was close to several tycoons in Zhejiang Business Group. He was not ostracized like him. Lin Zhe and Chun Jiahao had a good relationship. They could be regarded as friends of scoundrels. Chun Jiahao had been infatuated with Lin Su for a long time. If the Lin family had not chosen Yin Chaozong, the two families would have been connected by marriage. After Lin Zhe heard his father's arrangement, Lin Zhe hurried to call Chun Jiahao. He would make him pay a few times. If Lin Su was not his sister, he would not give such a beautiful woman to Chun Jiahao. When Lin Zhe went out, Lin Su, who had changed her clothes, came out. She walked slowly to the people in the living room. She was not as cold as she used to be. She greeted Lin Chongting and his wife politely. Dad, Auntie, good afternoon. Lin Chongting's wife still turned up her nose at Lin Su. She had never taken her daughter seriously. In her eyes, she was just an old fox who had given birth to a little fox. Lately, she had been tormenting the Lin family. She did not understand. The Lin family had raised her for so many years. They fed her, dressed her, and supported her to go to school. She probably had the best family background among your peers. Now, when the Lin family needed her, she actually went against the Lin family. If it were not for the old mistress stopping her, she would have slapped her and let her know what the family rules were. Moreover, the husbands that the Lin family had chosen for her were all young and talented men of equal social status. Not to mention the status of the Yin family. Yin Chaozong was quite famous in Shanghai. He could have anything he wanted. How could she fall in love with a bumpkin who had no background? Fine, let's not talk about Yin Chaozong. You were crazy about love once. Now that the bumpkin had abandoned you, and the Lin family had chosen Chun Jiahao for you, why are you still so stubborn? What on earth do you want? Therefore, Lin Chongting's wife had a lot of resentment towards Lin Su. She snorted and turned to leave directly, not wanting to talk to Lin Su. Lin Su had long been used to this aunt style. When had she ever been nice to her since she was a child? Song Chu and Tianjing were a little embarrassed and felt sorry for Lin Su. Lin Chongting would not do that. After all, the Lin family needed Lin Su's help. As long as Lin Su agreed to marry Chun Jiahao, the Chun family would immediately inject capital into the Lin family and help the Lin family to refinance, and so on. You finally understand. My efforts were not in vain. Lin Chongting let out a long sigh. Thinking of these things that had happened during this period, it was really sad. Lin Su smiled, but didn't say anything. She just smiled faintly at Song Chu and Tianjing. She understood her two best friends and didn't blame them. Lin Chongting said thoughtfully, then you guys talk first. When Jiahao comes later, let your two best friends check you carefully to see if I have chosen the right person. I'll go to the study to work first." Lin Su nodded at her father and said, "Okay, got it." After Lin Chongting and his wife left, Lin Yu immediately sat beside her sister and said with a look of disbelief, "Sister, you really gave in under pressure. What about brother-in-law? You just abandoned him like this?" Although Song Chu and Lin Yu were not familiar with each other, they had more or less met several times. So he refuted, "Lin Yu, what are you talking about? Love will eventually be defeated by reality. What can Qin Sheng bring to your sister? She should not have chosen him at that time. He is the Prince Charming that so many women dream of, but your sister does not know how to cherish him. Now she has missed him. Do you regret it?" Lin Yu replied to Song Chu impolitely, "Sister Song Chu, I'm afraid that you want to marry him, but he doesn't like you." You. Hearing this, Song Chu was instantly annoyed, but he could not vent his anger. After all, this was the Lin family. Lin Su stared at Lin Yu and said, "Lin Yu, what are you talking about?" Lin Yu obediently shut up. Anyway, she was in a bad mood at this time. Since her sister had given in, she might not be able to decide her love life in the future. Alas, if she were to be reincarnated in the next life, it would be better to be born in an ordinary family. Tan Jing felt that it was not that simple. After all, when Song Chu was persuading Lin Su just now, the look in Lin Su's eyes was very firm, and she did not intend to change her mind. It had only been slightly more than an hour. How could Lin Su give in an instant? Tan Jing held Lin Su's hand and asked worriedly, "Su, you really can't hold on anymore?" Lin Su smiled faintly and said, "You will know in a while. Since it is quiet now, let's not talk about these trivial things. Tell me, how have you been recently?" The calmer Lin Su was, the more curious the others were about what on earth was going on. At 11 o'clock in the afternoon, Qin Sheng, Lin Su, and Lin Su finally arrived in Ningbo. On the way, Qin Sheng witnessed Nangong's driving skills. Fortunately, this was an off-road vehicle. If she had driven a supercar, several policemen would have taken them to the police station when they got off the highway. After they got off the highway, Qin Sheng called the local bully in Ningbo, who was arranged by his sister to receive them. It was a man in his 30s, who was Qin Ran's classmate in college. After graduation, he returned to Ningbo and worked in his family's business. Now he was somewhat famous in Ningbo, but not as famous as the Lin family. The man named Chu Fan was very excited after he received Qin Sheng's call, because his old classmate Qin Ran had told him many things. This time, his brother came to Ningbo to vent his anger. No matter how big the trouble was, he didn't need to worry about it. He just needed to cooperate. Chu Fan had heard about the background of the Qin family. Otherwise, how could a girl like Qin Ran become the vice president of the student union of Tsinghua University when she was only a sophomore? As a top university in China, Tsinghua University could be the leader of the student union of Tsinghua University. Although Chu Fan was born in a rich family in Ningbo, when he came to Beijing and Tsinghua University, he knew what it meant to be rich and powerful. Therefore, he kept a low profile and knew how to be a good person. He got along well with his classmates and teachers, including his relationship with Qin Ran. After graduation, Chu Fan returned to Ningbo early. These years, he still kept a good relationship with his classmates. He even made time to meet with them. Because of this, with the help of his classmates, his family's company was ready to be listed on the stock market. After receiving Qin Sheng's call, Chu Fan greeted him politely. After that, he told Qin Sheng that he was already waiting for him at the Marriott Hotel in the Old Bund, the most prosperous place in Ningbo. After hanging up the phone, Qin Sheng navigated the GPS and went straight to the Marriott Hotel with Nangong and Changbaji. 10 minutes later, at the entrance of the Marriott Hotel, Qin Sheng met his sister's old classmate. He was a man in a suit and shirt. He was not tall, but he was very energetic. After greeting each other, Chu Fan took Qin Sheng and the others to go through the check-in procedures. He directly booked a presidential suite for Qin Sheng, which he could afford. Chu Fan guessed that Qin Sheng's two friends must be bodyguards. Otherwise, Qin Sheng would not dare to make trouble in Ningbo. After putting down the luggage, Chu Fan asked casually, "Qin Sheng, I've arranged lunch. Let's talk about the details later. What do you think? Qin Sheng refused in a euphemistic way. Brother Chu, we are not in a hurry to have lunch. Let's go to the Lin family first. I don't want them to wait for too long. Chapter 429. Chapter 429, How Dare You? The Lin family's old house was located in the scenic area of Dongxian Lake, which was close to the downtown area and the seaside. It was a prosperous tourist resort, surrounded by high-end hotels and so on. However, the Lin family's house was a little remote. After all, it covered thousands of acres and was isolated from the outside world. It could be seen that the status of the Lin family in Ningbo was declining in the hands of the brothers Lin Changhe and Lin Chongting. In recent years, the domestic economy and the global economy were not doing well, especially in the real economy. Most of the Lin family's industries were traditional industries. A few years ago, the Lin brothers thought that the real estate business could help the Lin family further develop, so they blindly expanded and carried out several projects in many places in the province. Besides, they got involved in the financial industry and tasted the sweetness, so they became more and more eager for quick success and profits. However, in recent years, the real estate industry and the financial industry were under strict control. First, the real estate industry was controlled by various purchase restriction policies. Second, the financial industry was prevented from entering the real estate industry, which made local real estate companies like the Lin family fall into a cold winter. Originally, the Lin family was a shareholder of Zhejiang Bank and Ningbo Local Bank, so they could get cheap funds. However, the government tightened its control on the financial industry, so no one dared to challenge the red line. Especially in the second half of last year, the big banks were fined by the CBRC all over the country. Even the Qin family had to be careful, not to mention a local family like the Lin family. Last time, the Qin family secretly played a trick. A provincial leader mentioned that the Lin family's real estate project was suspected of violating the rules. Then, the Housing Administration Bureau suspended the pre-sale of the Lin family's real estate project. Everyone knew that pre-sale was an important way to recover funds in the real estate industry. This way was blocked, which made the Lin family even worse. There was a cost to capital, and the real estate business was essentially a game of capital costs. Whoever could get the cheaper land from the government and get long-term and cheap capital from the bank behind the government would be the final winner. Obviously, a local real estate company like the Lin family didn't have such a background. Only those national real estate companies had such resources and more comprehensive financing methods. Therefore, a series of bad results would form a vicious circle. The capital chain would be tight, and the funds would not flow back. The capital cost would get higher and higher, which could crush the Lin family at any time. This was the most important reason why the Lin family had been in such a difficult situation this year. Why Lin Chongting couldn't wait to find a strong ally. If he made the wrong choice, he might be inviting a wolf into the house. At this moment, it was already lunchtime. The main residence of the Lin family was unusually lively. However, the elders were in one dining room, and the juniors were in another dining room. Lin Su had gone to see her grandmother just now. Seeing this unloved granddaughter coming out, the old lady seemed to have guessed something. She could only say with grievance, "Su, I'm old. I can't protect you anymore." She did not tell Grandma that Qin Sheng would be there in a while. Instead, she comforted her by saying, "Grandma, it's okay. Everything will be over." She chatted with her grandmother for a while, reminding her to take care of her health and not to think about other things. She only left after Lin Zhe's bad friend, who was also the Mr. Right that the Lin family had chosen for him, arrived. Lin Zhe and Chen Jiahao were having dinner in a small restaurant with Lin Su, Song Chu, Tan Jing, and Lin Yu. Lin Chongting, Lin Changhe, and their wives were having dinner with a middle-aged man in a round-table restaurant. The middle-aged man was not here to pay a New Year's call. He had been here since the first day of the Spring Festival. Today, he was invited by Lin Changhe to talk about business. The Lin family's capital shortage was getting bigger and bigger. They had to think of more ways to maintain the mess, so usury was another way. In the past, it was impossible for the Lin family to make friends with this nephew of a branch family. After all, the brothers of the Lin family looked down on this nephew of a branch family. However, if a tiger fell into a plane, it would be bullied by a dog. What would they do now? Song Hao, at this time, you better be honest. How much money can you raise for us? Lin Chongting said politely. The man they had looked down on in the past was doing better than them in Ningbo now. How could they feel relieved? However, this was the reality. They had looked down on him before, but now they had to be polite to him. Lin Songhao was wearing a black sweater. His hair was combed and his face was shining. He wore a limited edition golden Rolex on his hand and held a cigar in his mouth, looking very proud. His eyes were unscrupulously looking up and down at the two middle-aged but still charming aunts. He liked this kind of young married women who had a unique flavor. Third uncle, it depends on how many things we can mortgage. After all, the current environment is not very good. No one dares to make trouble, let alone such a large amount of money. Lin Songhao said proudly. This was the first time in his life that he could raise his head in front of the two direct uncles of the Lin family, and he could even sit with them as equals. Every time he came to the Lin family when he was a child, he was often looked down upon by them. After all, it was instinctive for the direct relatives to look down on the collateral relatives. At that time, Lin Songhao was somewhat jealous and hated himself for not being the son of Lin Chongting and his brother. Lin Chongha said immediately, Songhao, we really don't have many things to mortgage. You know the situation of our family recently, so you need to think of more ways to help us get through this difficult time. Lin Songhao snorted disdainfully. Now you want to talk about feelings with me. Why didn't you be so polite when you looked down on me before? He said with a fake smile. Sixth uncle, I'm already thinking of ways. Everyone in Ningbo knows what happened to our family. If I didn't take the lead, do you think anyone would dare to take over this mess? It's said that our family has offended some big shot. Could you tell me some information? I need to think about it. Lin Chongha said perfunctorily, Songhao, it's okay for others to spread those rumors. Do you really believe them? But since you said so, how much can you pay? But according to our relationship, we can always reduce the interest. After all, we have helped you a lot these years. Rumors? Lin Songhao looked thoughtful. If the rumors were true, the project of the Lin family would be stopped and investigated at will, which had never happened before. Everyone was blind. However, it was not that Lin Chongha lied to him. So far, even the Lin family didn't know what was going on. Which immortal did they offend? The two brothers of the Lin family spent a lot of money to inquire about it. Even if they paid for it, they still knew where the road was. Hearing Lin Chongha's words, Lin Songhao didn't know whether to laugh or cry. What's the relationship between our two families? If we didn't share the same surname, we wouldn't have anything to do with each other. When I first started my career, I wanted to ask for your help. But did you help me? Later, when I became better, you decided to do me a favor. Besides, I did a lot of things for you. The brothers of the Lin family didn't know that Lin Songhao didn't really intend to help them this time. Instead, he made up his mind to encroach on the Lin family and get a share of this feast. After all, there were many people who wanted to take advantage of the Lin family. Consequently, Lin Songhao said straightforwardly, Sixth uncle, if the money were all mine, I would definitely have the final say. I could even let the Lin family take it for free. However, the money is not mine after all. Others helped the Lin family because of me. Consequently, the interest should not be less than 1 cent. When Lin Songhao said the last sentence, not 1 cent less. The look in his eyes had already told the Lin brothers that it was impossible to negotiate. The brothers of the Lin family slightly changed their expressions. They didn't expect that Lin Songhao would be so heartless. The two brothers couldn't help but look at each other. They didn't expect that the Lin family would be in such a situation. Third uncle, sixth uncle, if you can find cheaper money, I don't think it's necessary to borrow such a high-interest loan. Lin Songhao didn't forget to add insult to injury. Lin Chongting's face was very pale. He stared at Lin Songhao, and it seemed that he would fall out with him In the small dining room of the Lin family, the atmosphere at the moment was not much better. Lindsay had thought that Lin Su had compromised with the whole Lin family by walking out of the small building. Then, when Chen Jiahao came, Lin Su would at least be nice to him. However, he didn't expect that Lin Su was unwilling to say a word to Chen Jiahao. She just lowered her head to eat, which made Lindsay and Chen Jiahao quite embarrassed. Fortunately, Song Chu and Tan Jing were there to ease the embarrassment. Otherwise, they would have had a hard time eating. Chen Jiahao was young and handsome, but he looked a little thin and had dark circles under his eyes. Obviously, he was exhausted by alcohol and women. After all, he could hang out with Lindsay, so he couldn't be a good guy. Song Chu was naturally interested in this kind of rich second generation. If he hadn't introduced him to Lin Su, she would have taken the initiative to hook up with him. Tan Jing, on the other hand, was polite and not overly attentive. Lin Su, I know I'm not good enough for you, but I really like you. If you're willing to give me a chance, I won't let you down, Chen Jiahao said straightforwardly. He sounded a little aggrieved, but it was also a trick. Lin Su still didn't say anything. She just shook her head slightly. She never wanted to find a man who was humble in front of her. A man had to conquer her from the bottom of his heart so that she would be willing to be with him. The reason why she chose Qin Sheng was not because of Qin Sheng's great achievements. Instead, it was because Qin Sheng's performance in South Sichuan had won her over. Lin Su lowered her head to eat. At the same time, she thought that he should have gone to Ningbo. After all, it was only a 2.5-hour journey from Shanghai to Ningbo. As expected, at this time, her phone rang. Lin Su took out her phone carefully and saw the message. I've arrived. At this moment, Lin Su finally showed a smile that she hadn't seen for a long time, which made Chen Jiahao feel intoxicated. Lindsay was confused. Lin Su's phone had been confiscated. Why did she still have a spare one? At this time, Lin Su raised her head and said to everyone, Chen Jiahao, do you know why I don't like you? Because I, Lin Su, only like one man, and his name is Qin Sheng. Hearing this, Lin Zhe was instantly furious and said, Lin Su, how dare you? You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.